CT tells us that things are going to flow smoothly today. However, there are people on the road, and it's also Friday. Things don't look so crazy at the moment. There's already traffic building up on Mombasa Road as we speak, heading out towards Cabanas. Another lane has been closed on Mombasa Road in that area. So things are likely to look crazy this Friday morning. But we're going to keep an eye on things and see then what it looks like as we go along. We see some traffic building up also around North Airport Road today. Not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll keep an eye on things and see how it opens up. It's Friday. Let's start it off right. If you see anything that we should know about, let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 6. Very good morning to you. How are you doing? Now, this week cannot have had 2 Fridays. It's the 13th. Friday, the 13th of August, 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. CT Muga, habari?
Habari ni mzuri, mimi pia ni mzima. Hofu kwako kaka?
Mimi sina hofu.
Hofu yeye akae tu hapo.
Hofu akae mahali yako.
Na wewe ukae hapo.
Mimi ni bofu. Hofu, bofu, kofu.
What are those?
Who knows, man?
That's poetry. Speak and rhyme all the time.
Stitch in time saves 9.
She teach.
Stitch in time.
Yeah, save time.
Yeah, save 9.
Oh, no.
Welcome. Ndu?
Yeah.
Na wewe je?
Niko salama. Yes, habari asubuhi?
Njema kabisa.
Nzuri sana.
Tumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Pia yes.
Oh, okay, I'm waiting. Bated breath, but clearly let me breathe because
you breathe, bwana.
basi.
You breathe, bwana. We'll have
How are you?
See, that's what I've just said.
I know. I'm just checking.
I am fine, thank you. And thank you very much for asking.
Voila.
I'm glad to be here this morning. Don't take it for granted every time we see one another. Yeah.
Very true.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
You have no idea just how very true what you're saying is. Because, you know, there's a phase of one's life when one seems to have very many funerals. And usually it happens when your parents start getting on in years. Then your turn comes.
Yep.
To do what?
To also get old. Yes. And then
To funerate.
yes, and then you also start that process of beginning to bury your friends. The good thing is that it means you are still alive.
Yeah.
Yes. And I am burying a friend today.
Poleni sana.
Somebody who I was in school with from Form 1.
Until?
University. Yes.
Poleni sana.
And in those days, people went to school when they were 12 years old. 13 was kidogo, but 12. So somebody you've known.
So Form 1 was 21.
Form 1, you were 12 years old.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. So you started going to school at 12.
No. No. You started a lot
Pre-marriage.
earlier. Remember, we just came after that age where your age was determined by whether your hand could actually reach right across your head and touch your ear.
Your shoulder.
That one. Yes. Oh, in your part of the world was the shoulder, was it?
Actually,
Shoulder.
If If you could touch it.
all the way,
Yeah.
the shoulder.
You know, okay, you've matured a
You're
little
being
bit.
told something you must pay attention
You're
to.
saying ear.
There's
We
a
had
part of the world where people have longer hands than others.
Or they're just big-bodied. Because
Or
surely,
or small-headed.
yeah, it was the ear. Yes, it was all the way to the shoulder.
I told you.
I think my dad was just a persecutor.
Pay keen attention to these cultural nuances. Shoulder.
Where? Sheesh. Maybe it's when someone can actually touch their ear, they're about what, 4, 5. So they have to say, all right, no, shoulder. So we're sure.
So when you're yes. Have you ever understood why it is when you get to these delightful ages that beyond, say, some 5 decades, the inventors of this language that you now speak said that you are long in the tooth?
Now, what does that mean, actually? What's the origin of that?
So I'm asking...
Long in the tooth.
I'm asking Sister here.
Sister.
Brother here knows. He just wants to see if I know.
Yeah?
Cities, you just tell us.
No. No.
You will not tell us?
No. It's Friday the 13th.
Okay.
Yes.
Ominous. There's a guy in the corner.
Yes.
Okay, at 11:06, let's look at the COVID numbers. What's happening?
All right. So yesterday, again, high numbers. 1546 is what we're looking at coming out of Kenya yesterday. Again, this is not good. If we're looking at 1,546 COVID positive cases in the country, and again, positivity rate has risen by 1+%, now at 15.9. Remember, the recommended numbers are below 5%, so it does not look good at all. Quite a number of people. I just looked at, interestingly, social media yesterday, the stories that people are telling, and of the about 7 or 8, I knew 2 of them who lost.
2 stories.
I knew 2 of the individuals who've lost a family member, and people are crying and saying, we're losing people on a daily basis. So the 6 degrees of separation that we talk about is I mean, it's right here.
It is.
People are not just getting sick, people are dying from COVID. It is not a good situation that we are dealing with right now.
It's not a good, and especially this cold is not helping because many people are exhibiting now all these symptoms.
Yes.
And as we said, you go to hospital and the doctor tells you it's pneumonia, and you go back home. But in very many cases, you see, they're even adding COVID pneumonia. So there are very many people who are falling sick, who are having breathing difficulties, who are getting chest issues.
And younger and younger.
But you know what, this was predicted.
We were told that it would get worse during the cold season.
Yes, this was predicted. This is not something new. But then, how then do you balance preparedness with simple survival? Because most Kenyans are on survival mode.
Yeah.
Just how to ensure you live today, not tomorrow. If you finish today, you can then start thinking about the next day, when the next day begins.
Yep. Well, I think it's just the issue of a government being prepared to deal with cases as they keep swinging up and down. Because as we speak, if we had very many facilities that would be able to just take in people, you're feeling ill, you've gotten COVID, you start developing those symptoms, they tell you, come in. We'll check just basic X-ray, even if they don't have. So, what's the condition of your lungs? Are you breathing well? So, do you need supplemental oxygen? So, let's just give you oxygen support. Stay here for 2-3 days. Get your lungs up and running. We'd be able to move somewhere.
I think
now
so.
we're talking about people actually not being able to go to hospital because they know hospitals are full. Hospitals not being able to admit people who need to be admitted. And the cost. People are also shying away from going to hospital because they're thinking, so am I going to be able to afford it? It's just...
What is also tragic about it is that in this space of preparedness, to the government's credit, they did try to get the counties to prepare. You can have a discussion around the level of effort, but that the conversation took place and money was set aside with the sole purpose of ensuring that health facilities in all the 47 counties are at least spruced up.
Right.
Or at least have something that they didn't have before. That effort was made. But again, with the effort having been made, there ought to have been yet a supplementary effort made to ensure. But we saw
thing
that
is, it was a
went.
one-off, right? So we're seeing counties receiving 100 million shillings. 100 million shillings for health. So you've bought beds, right? Let's say you've increased the number of beds. You've put up a new ward. Have you sorted out oxygen? Have you sorted out everything else? Or even some of them have taken this and just done PPEs. Then,
You know, the question you raise is an important one. And this is now where a health economist and people who understand costing would come in. Because the understanding in the public realm is that anything health-related is extremely expensive. Not entirely true.
Not true.
It's a question of whether people are prepared to use whatever resources they have in the best way possible. That, in my mind, is really the discussion. But so long as you have situations where people remove beds from schools to take to hospitals, remove them from some other remote health facility to take, then whatever was supposed to have been done is for window dressing, so that when the supervisors come, you give the impression that you've done what you're supposed to. Yes, but God alone knows where that money went.
hii Kenya yetu hii
Ni nchi ajabu.
kabisa.
Remember a song was sung about that?
Yes. Nchi yetu Kenya ni nchi ya ajabu.
It was yes, that song.
But now, the song itself, by ajabu, they actually meant, it's a glorious country.
Yes.
It's a wonderful country. They did not mean this
Peculiarly troublesome country.
Yeah. 17 minutes after 6, we are live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter on this Friday, the 13th day of August 2021. We'll be telling you what to expect in the show shortly. Let's first see how the weather is looking like in this very cold country of ours and in those very hot countries elsewhere.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. Get NCBA SME business solutions tailored to your business and start counting the special memories. NCBA Bank. Go for it. NCBA Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Twenty-4/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. Get NCBA
Friday
SME
morning at 15 degrees is what Nairobi is ringing through. Highs of 21 and lows of 14 today. Partly cloudy conditions at 13 in Nyeri. Highs of 20. 24 will be the high in Nakuru. It's mostly clear at 16. Clear conditions in Eldoret at 15. Highs of 23 and lows of 12. We'll see highs of 28 in Kisumu. It's mostly clear at 20. 17 degrees and clear conditions in Kakamega. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15. 29 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's raining at 22. 23 degrees and partly cloudy in Malindi, highs of 29. At 19 degrees, Kampala is raining this morning. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 18. We'll see 30 as the high in Dar es Salaam today. It's mostly clear at 20 at the moment. 9 degrees and clear in Johannesburg. We'll get a little bit chillier today, going to highs of just 14 and lows of 4. Light rain in Lagos, highs of 29 and lows of 24. 21 and clear in Kinshasa, with highs of 32 today. We'll see highs of 28 in Beijing, where it is raining into their afternoon. Clear at 17 in Paris, highs of 28 and lows of 14. At 15 degrees, London is clear, highs of 22 and 28 in New York Thursday night. Coming into Friday, it's going to be warm with an excessive heat warning, highs of 35 and lows of 26.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, 20 minutes after 6. People are online, aren't they?
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Okay, first of all, Shiragi Mwai says, good morning, Mabazus and Bazures. Sheesh. Tuning from
Mabazus and Bazures.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Says, good morning to you. He's about to, get on the train this morning.
Which one?
Is great. He's at the Imaradaima train station.
This guy is a train driver.
I think so.
Ah, yes.
You've decided.
Should I get to Tuambia tu kweli? So, Imaradaima is this one.
Yes.
The other days is usually in Ruiru.
Yes.
Boarding the train.
Yes. Deduce.
Well, yeah, if it was a time when one didn't pay before one got onto the train, you'd have thought he was a conductor. But train driver.
Train driver is okay.
Pilot.
Or
Yes.
security. He's a police officer with the railway police.
Very possible.
Okay.
But we welcome all that.
Absolutely.
1 + 1 is equals 2, Shirage.
Professor Dicho says, good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen, tuned in from Kamthusi Mwingi Kama Ibada. Becky Odhiambo says she's tuning from Europe. Friday the 13th is a myth, she says. Sabal Heri, Eric and Ndu na Shikamo CT, that's Roger's lie. Raphael Comrade Mwembe, he says he's tuned in and he joined class 1 at age 6. Okay. After 2 years in PP and then Form 1 at age 14. And then the uni at age 20. Interesting, because we're having education conversations today. Let's hear what this is all about. Bode Akinwumi, tuned in from Nigeria. Ekabo. Gordon Mugisha, tuned in from Kampala this morning. Barnabas Gore, tuned in from Kisumu. David Kiare, tuned in from Subukia. Robert Mbogo is also tuning from Mombasa this morning. John Jera is asking, why do you hold your breath and yawn? Almost every morning. Should you not?
Why do you hold your breath and yawn?
Almost every morning. Is that modern studio too cold? These are questions. He's tuning from Lambwe.
No, it's a very, very valid question.
Yes.
Yes. It's a combination of all that.
All of it. He's tuning from Lambwe Valley in Homa Bay County. Talofa is tuning from Melbourne in Australia. Moses Kashare is also tuned in from Juja this morning. And he says, I've lost so many friends and family members due to COVID. This is a thing. And he says, pray for Kenya, family and friends. Absolutely. Kennedy Ogodo is tuning in this morning from his mansion. And he's listening to Spice FM. This is good. And he says, today's proverb is the teeth is made up of bones. Lak chogo muga. Don't forget this.
I will not forget it.
Okay. Good. I'm trying to get to everybody
Chogo
here.
is bone.
Bone.
Yes, lak is teeth.
Voila. Trying to get
So
to
lak
everybody
chogo
here.
is
Lak chogo
jaw.
is teeth bone. Bone tooth.
Well, directly translated, I think do is in the right direction. Carry on. Teeth
Teeth
bone.
bone. Bone teeth. Lebogang Fologan is tuned in this morning from Johannesburg in South Africa and is asking us, when we're not speaking English, to put subtitles. Eric, note down. Charity Manasseh is tuned in from Kampala. Vincent Omondi this morning is tuned in as well. David Ndlovu is also tuned in from Zambia. Wesley Ajega is tuned in from Nandi. John Mugomati tuned in this morning and is watching from the Seychelles. Philefe Collins is also tuned in. Kirowo Peter, Kennedy Ondongo, Charity Minor, Maureen Chepkoske. Also tuned in from Bukembe, Bungoma is Pauline Mukoya Munjaru. Samuel Muga is tuned in from Kakamega County this morning. Salute. Bay Macha is tuned in this morning. Diane Mboro is also tuned in. And Ochoma Chinedu is tuned in from Dubai. My goodness, everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Sana, welcome to the Situation Room. Shuraga Mwai says he's none of the above.
Ni hali ya kuhasu.
He's not a train driver. He's not security. He's not a conductor. He is just a hustler. All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. We'll be having conversations around education today. So, first, people did fourth form, standard 8. They got their results, and then they had selected schools to go to in secondary school. Some of those sat their KCPE from private schools. But the selection does not include any private school. So basically you find that people who then opt not to go to the public school that they had selected, going to a private school and leaving those slots open. So there's been a conversation about the Private Schools Association saying, just add us onto the list so that people can basically select. If you're sitting Standard 8 and you're now selecting the schools that you'd like to go to in secondary, don't just look at the list of public schools, add also the list of private schools.
It's a good conversation.
How do you categorize them?
It's a good conversation.
Are there national private schools, extra county private schools?
Again,
Or do you just put a separate category of private?
you see, it's a good discussion.
Yeah, we'll be having that discussion at 7 o'clock. At 8, we'll have a conversation about teachers' unions and their rights, and then those that want to join a union, those that don't want to join a union. We saw in the papers yesterday that there's a whole new union that's being formed for teachers. So the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, he's a nominated MP, Wilson Sosion, he'll be joining us at 8. And then at 9, we've done the primary selection. At 9, we do the secondary selection. How do people select the courses that they'd like to take and the universities or colleges that they'd like to go to? The body that is responsible for that, it is called KUSIPS. University and Colleges.
Selection. Wait.
It's called what again?
KUSIPS. Universities and colleges.
Wait now.
KUSIPS.
So say. Open it in full. Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service.
Voila.
Yes, those are the guys. The boss of this organization, the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, will be joining us at 9 because we want to ask, so are we really sure that our 16, 17-year-olds are actually able to tell what they want to become when they grow up? When they're selecting the courses that they want to take in university and college, what are they taken through? Is there an opportunity for the parents and their guardians to participate in that conversation? That's what we'll be discussing at 9. But let's begin with the proverb, Siti Muga.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Conferring a secret to a non-worthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Yes.
You can see the hole in the sack. Can you see the worthiness of the person?
There's the illusion. But when you get to your destination, you start thinking, why is this sack getting lighter? Maybe I imagined it was heavy. When you lay it down, you realize that the content is not what you started with.
Yeah. Things have changed.
Oh, they have changed for good.
My goodness. All right. So let's look at the headlines. Just about 2 minutes and then we take a look at traffic. I think the headlines in the papers. Inside Raila talks with the US-EU envoys. What's Ruto up to? What's there in the Star?
Ruto, Mount Kenya allies table new demands.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not what really caught my attention in the Star.
Yeah.
What caught my attention
we'll look at
is a picture and the stories on page 2. So we'll look at it.
Page 2,
Yes, yes.
As all these things are happening, next week, from the 17th of August, guess what will be happening?
Yes.
Yes? Yes?
Yes, carry on.
Yes, what will be happening?
I don't know.
I
Tell
said,
me.
guess what will be happening?
How am I supposed to get something that you're supposed to tell me?
So from the 17th of August, next week, we'll be having a global showpiece taking place in Nairobi, Kenya. We just came out of the Olympics, right?
We did.
The World Under-20 Athletics
Championships
Championships are taking place in Kenya next week.
Yes.
Yes.
From Tuesday.
Yes.
Global teams are arriving in the country as we speak. The World Under-20 Athletics Championships is looking at the next decade and a half or so. The people who will be big in track and fields are now under 20.
Yes.
They will be in Nairobi next week.
Yes.
The next decade's big athletes will be here.
Yes.
But what are we hearing? These talks. Have you seen any banner that tells you, you know what, there's something big that's happening in this country?
Save for any inside information you would have, or maybe a news clip or another that you saw about athletes and their preparation. You have no idea that such an event of world status is happening in this country. No.
If our colleague in
Nothing.
Tokyo hadn't mentioned it, when we talked to him, I honestly would
You wouldn't have known.
You had
no clue whatsoever. But I would most certainly know that Mount Kenya is stibbling something.
Yeah.
And inside Raila
Yeah.
or the
And their envoys.
And what's Ruto up to?
Can you imagine?
That one you would
certainly-
know.
I would know.
But what could essentially take this country is some huge leaps and bounds in terms of world recognition of stuff that really mattered. You had no clue.
This question that is raised by many people, and those we've had in the studio have raised it too. What do we in the media think we are doing? Because this is us.
Imagine. Yeah.
What do we think we're doing? Why are we forcing a certain narrative down our fellow citizens' throats?
Even the government itself. This is one thing that could actually even move the country's attention and give us something to unite around.
Something
Just like
good.
they did with the Safari Rally.
Something good.
Something good to look at. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be shown on this particular TV stations. You can catch the action here. You can all watch. So you cannot go to the stadium because COVID, blah, blah, blah. But this is what...
It's something you can
This
watch.
is
And
something
it's
you
happening
can
here.
watch.
It's not happening elsewhere.
Yes.
It's here.
You can even start telling us, so if you see so and so, this is the next champion in this and the other. But we are not seeing that. We are not seeing any promotion of this conversation. They did much more with the Safari Rally, which was taking place in a controlled environment. This one is taking place here in Nairobi, in also a controlled environment in Kasarani, but not much effort. Zero. It's like, yeah.
Have you actually seen any mention of it, any loud mention of it in the media?
Not much.
Yes, I thought I was
Not
the only
much.
one. I thought maybe I missed it. No, not much.
In 2017, we hosted the last Under-18 World Championships.
Yes, we did.
Okay? We broke the record. This was the highest number of spectators, over 60,000 people, ever recorded in a World Under-18 Athletics Championships. Global Under-18 Athletics Championships took place in Nairobi just about 4 years ago. We showed the world that people actually love athletics. More than 60,000 people filled the stadium. And then here we are, just 4 years later, a big opportunity for us to... It's 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a break. So what are the roads looking like? And then we'll look at other papers, like what caught CT's attention on page 2 of the Star. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and
All right, so it's starting
nostalgic
to build
ballad.
up on these Nairobi streets this morning. Let's start outside of Nairobi for a minute. Going out west, visibility is extremely poor. We've already seen that as you leave Kikuyu, heading out towards the Limuru area and then on towards Naivasha and Nakuru, we are seeing that this morning the clouds are quite low, so we need to be extremely careful. Hopefully that doesn't end up in any kind of traffic, but we're keeping an eye on that. So there's no traffic situation, but potentially could lead to one with the visibility issues that we're experiencing this morning. All right, out east towards the coast, Mombasa, also traffic is not looking too bad here. Folks have woken up and started to go about their business with not too much drama. Back in Nairobi, Jogo Road is building up. We're looking at it between the train station at Makadara and then out towards Mbotela. But then as you get to Landis Road, not too much of an issue right now. Kamkunji roundabout and into the CBD is where it's building up quite some. Langata Road has already started to build up today. The drama that was Mombasa Road last night, we are hoping that that does not spill over into this morning. But with what we are seeing is happening with the construction right around the SGR, it's likely to do just that. But we're going to keep an eye on things and hopefully things don't get out of whack. Just in case they do, let us know so we can spread the word on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawoko?
I can't say it very well. No, Muthui Jeshi Lokop.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 23 minutes to 7. So, page 2 of the Star.
You know, we haven't gotten over the death of Benson Jiru and Emmanuel Mutura, the 2 young men from Embu who supposedly jumped out of a moving police vehicle and sustained injuries that brought about their death. Allegedly.
Yes.
Okay? Now, if that isn't tragedy enough, in Kajiado, something even more heinous and worse happened.
Wow.
4 young men.
Wow.
They'd gone to attend a birthday party. One of their relatives, they're all relatives, brothers, cousins. Okay? So they decided that they were going to take a walk. There's a seasonal river in Kitengela. They were going to just take a walk around there. And they had their motorbikes. Somebody then sounds the alarms and says, these 4 men with their motorbikes look like they're here to steal cattle. They're attacked with spears, they're killed. Yes.
All 4.
All 4. All 4.
By villagers.
By villagers, who of course then take off. And then this is reported by the police in the area. And they say, you know, this is a county commander, that it's the residents who are involved in this attack and they should have reported the matter to the police. Now, I'm looking at this story.
Yeah.
Mike George, 29. Frederick Mureithi, 22. Victor Mwangi, 26. Nicholas Musa, 28. These are young men. Yeah, look at this.
How do they look like fellows who are going to come and steal cattle? How do people of this nature look?
You've heard me say on many occasions about the power of example, the negative and corrosive power of example. All right? The reason why extrajudicial killing is fought as much as it did, because it opens the door for every other idiot and whoever it is to decide that they are going to take the law in their hands. Now look at this tragedy.
So, 2 of these, the brothers had left Syokimau.
Yes.
And gone for this party.
Yes.
Isinya.
Yes, they had.
And then, because of a spate maybe of cattle robberies there in the area,
it is
they
common.
They were alert.
Yes.
And so some 4 suspicious characters are seen by
with a motorbike.
A hard boy, alerts others, and the Morans come and they...
Nobody pauses to ask, You know, this is the strange thing about cattle raiding. You know, people who actually steal cattle usually know the area. They're not strangers. You can't go to a place and commit a theft without understanding the where to force. It's a place you've studied, you figured it out. But they're strangers. You don't know them. How does that translate into cattle thieves? How? I mean, connect it for me if you can.
Well, that's the thing. Cattle thieves also are not your neighbors.
So anybody who is a stranger in that area.
So people who have not been seen. Okay, so I guess here now let me now just take the side of the Morans and the Herds boy. You see some strangers. Maybe a few cattle had been stolen last week, or there's some number of thefts that have occurred recently. Then you see some people. They look completely strange. They're not from here. None of them is looking familiar. You raise the alarm. As the Herds boy, you raise the alarm. You say, guys, you know, as I was looking after the cattle.
It wasn't even the Herds boy. It was just the residents.
I saw blah, 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 blah. And then they come.
That logic escapes me completely. Raise what alarm? What were they doing? What is it that they were doing that you looked suspicious?
Yeah, I guess we need more information from the locals. From those locals.
Because they arrived, these young men tried to explain and say,
no, we are here.
This is what... They were not listening. They speared these people to death.
It's really tragic. It's really, really, really tragic. As that happened, let me show you also, tell you of something else that also happened. In 2012, KCSE took place, right? One of the top students in that exam was called Edgar Odongo.
Yes.
This young man went on to secure admission at Yale University. Yale University.
That's an Ivy League university.
Ivy League. He died yesterday after an attack by unknown assailants. Edgar succumbed to the injuries sustained while undergoing treatment at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Yale, an Ivy League university in the US. He sustained serious cut wounds following the attack in Homa Bay. Yesterday, the family was coming to terms with the loss of their kin, in whom they had a lot of hope after graduating from the prestigious university. The family said they received reports that Odongo was found unconscious by the roadside. His stepbrother, Odongo Odol, says that Odongo may have been attacked on Tuesday evening as he headed home. A friend found him lying unconscious on the road and took him to Homa Bay Hospital. When he got to the hospital, he had been sedated and we did not get an opportunity to speak to him. He was taken to Jaramogi in Kisumu, placed at the facility's ICU, succumbed on around 11 p.m. After coming back from the US, where he graduated, the second born in their family was staying with his stepmother in Homa Bay. Imagine. And we're not talking about we're talking about the top student in that year. He was in Maseno. He scored an A of 89.86 points.
Potential died.
He was killed by some unknown people. You know, maybe he was walking back home, attacked by, let's assume, thugs, bitten, left for dead, rescued by a well-wisher, good Samaritan, rushed to hospital, referred to the big regional hospital. Young man has died.
Potential lost. Snuffed out.
Like that. Like that. You know, families are mourning left, right, and center. Those ones in Kitengela, these ones in Homa Bay.
The ones in Meru County burying their boys today.
Two of the brothers, their mother actually works in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
She has two children, two sons. Now, can you imagine the shock?
Of being
your two children dead.
Killed on suspicion of...
You know what is strange is that they were crossing the river, they wanted to go and buy chicken. They were stopped by some resident, and according to the story, a friend of theirs called Ndegwa, who was reporting, said, and they explained what they were doing. Okay. That explanation fell on deaf ears. the thing that comes to my mind,
Yeah.
for people to be on such, and I'm using the politest term I can actually find, such high alert, it means that people in that area have experienced a lot of theft.
Yep.
So they're suspicious of
They're
anyone.
completely suspicious.
Because this report also says clearly that the attack included members of the Nyumba Kumi. Now, these are the people who you would expect would have come the people down and said, folks,
Easy.
Yeah.
easy. They're strangers, yes, but can we find out a little bit more?
Yeah. Or can we arrest them? Yes.
And call the police.
And then
Call
ask
the police.
questions. Yeah.
And let the police carry out investigations. Maybe there's a level of not even trusting the police.
It's possible.
Now, that is where I was going with it.
Because they've tried. They may have. This is an option that
They may have raised the
tried
alarm with the
previously,
police before,
and nothing
police-
was done. And then you know what? We're going to take it into our own hands.
And
Any
also-
kind of threat, we'll deal with it.
You know, look at the cumulative effect of some of these things. Now, 4 young men, in addition to the other 2, in addition to this one, in addition to others who had died before, dying needlessly.
Yeah. 7:15. Let's take another quick break and look at other headlines shortly. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
This is something people need to understand. Your money, my money, equals our money. We cannot have your money is our money and my money is my money.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
13 minutes.
Mornings.
Let's look at other headlines.
So, Kenya Power staff, one of your favorite companies, CT, have refused to sign performance pact.
Pact contract?
Yo.
They've refused?
Yes.
Okay, and there's wisdom in this.
The workers have said the broken down systems will leave them at a disadvantage if they comply. A row has erupted between Kenya Power employees and the management after they refused to sign performance contracts, claiming that the systems within the company have crumbled. So asking the question that we did a couple of days ago, what exactly has happened at Kenya Power? The staff say most of the tools and machines they rely on to work effectively have broken down, affecting their work conditions, and they can thus not commit themselves until management has resolved the problems. Kenya Electoral Trades and Allied Workers Union, KETAU, General Secretary Ernest Nadome said that over 19,000 workers would not sign the documents, despite management's complaint that they are sabotaging operations. According to Nadome, for us to accept signing performance contracts, the company has to first solve all the work challenges. Systems have failed, procurement systems are not working, we are understaffed, and even at work, many tools and machines have failed. We cannot enter into performance contracts when things are like this. A meeting held between the management and KETAU officials last month aborted after union officials stormed out after 3 days of talks in an event that had been planned for 6 months. Management threw the spanner in the works when it demanded that our members have to sign these contracts. We were here to discuss issues of employer promotion, salary increments, and the hiring of staff on contract or permanent basis. The staff of contract to permanent basis. So they said, you know what? You want us to promise you that we're going to do the work right. Now, how about you fix the systems that are going to enable us to do this? You don't do that, even us. We can't show you that we will work.
Create a conducive environment for me to perform optimally, then tell me to sign a performance contract.
Yes.
All right.
Well, there's a lot to rot at Kenya Power right now.
Very valid point. Very valid. Is it not the same point?
Assuming that it's actually now, the point as it's being presented is actually the point.
It very rarely is.
It's a union, remember?
It very, very rarely is. It very, very rarely is. Because if there's some CBA discussions that have been left hanging, this is usually the moment when they bring it up. Say, okay, we're agreeing, but that other thing.
Remember that story that we were
we said
supposed
out there.
Yeah.
Can we resolve it first before we now move on to this other one? But you know something? They're going to sign those contracts.
And that's why the union is trying to get that. It's leverage, all right? So we know that your board requires you to get staff on performance contracts. We know this. So as management, you don't have much wiggle room here.
Zero.
That is leverage for the union. And if I was a union leader, I'd completely take advantage of that as well.
After all, that's why you're a union leader.
Yeah. I mean, this is your opportunity. You get every chance you get. Milk it. Milk it. The other day we were talking about bursaries, right?
Yes.
Somebody who I'm sure then listens to this show, Dr. Kilemi Mwiria, he is a former Assistant Minister for Education,
yes,
an MP.
Yes.
He is now the chairman of the Kenya National Qualifications Authority.
Yes.
Dr. Kilemi Mwiria has proposed that all bursary monies countrywide be channeled through one fund to enhance coordination and ensure all needy students benefit. He says the government and the private sector allocate billions of shillings in bursaries, but the uncoordinated disbursement encourages undeserving people to benefit, with some getting multiple allocations. Mwiria proposes that the government should develop a data bank of needy children with 300 marks and above. I get frustrated that every day I see on social media people organizing fundraisers to help needy children who are not in secondary school. I can tell you, without a doubt, that there would be enough for everyone. But the problem is coordination. We spoke about this.
Yes, we did. Because of the lack of coordination was clearly evident
Yep.
in that somebody could just stand up and say, well, you know what, from my county, I'm going to help this needy person. And then, or those who apply for bursaries, one gets 96,000, another one gets 2,000. I mean, how are we?
Do you think it's for lack of effort that there's no coordination, or do you think it's deliberate?
Well, I think what it does is that if you are seen as the
It's
one
power
who is
plays.
exactly, the one who is powerful, I come to you today, and you as the MP of that area come to you and say, look, I have problems. I cannot send my child to school. And you say, Ndu, I will be the one to help you.
Yeah.
Eric, Nani,
But
50,000.
Something. Look for something.
Who am I
small.
going to worship? You. Yeah.
It's all power plays.
I was having a chat with someone yesterday who was very, very frustrated with some. He kept repeating this word, mediocrity.
Uh-huh.
He said, why are we cursed with such mediocrity? He was referring to people he had employed himself. And I didn't have the heart to ask him, surely these are people who've worked for you for quite some time. So at what point did you notice this mediocrity?
Maybe he's just been tolerating it, and he's like, he thought, well, it's capacity building. They require a little bit more time. They need encouragement. They just give a benefit of the doubt.
I tried that argument and said, sometimes, people don't. He told me no. He wouldn't let me continue. He said, no. There are people who simply cannot do certain things. I said, yes, then why don't you give them tasks that are equal to their ability? He said, no. That is not what they were employed for. I realized here, somebody had been disappointed.
Completely.
And he had it.
He's at the end of his tether. He was on reaction.
Forget it.
But this is the requirement of this job and this position.
Yes.
Now, you came to me and you said you could do it.
Yes.
Did I explain to you what the requirements were?
Yes.
And you said you could do it? Yes. So now.
Actually, this individual actually argued that and told me, how many times have I given this person an opportunity to do this thing for which they were employed to and for which they are paid?
Yeah.
He said, no, enough. I realized here,
it's mediocrity.
This wasn't an opportunity for me to open up a debate. It was an opportunity for me to listen.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, ask yourself, when we talk about government services or the lack of government services thereof, don't you think there's a certain underlying mediocrity, whether it is deliberate or not? But we see it replicating itself over. It's like a virus, over and over and over, and then it mutates.
Yes.
And then it gets a new variant. For instance, I was having a chat again with somebody else yesterday. Yesterday was a day for chat. And one of the things that this individual had told me before was that working with the counties is a tedious affair. I said, why? He said, do you know you are expected to part with 50% of whatever it is? I said, what? 50?
For what?
To get paid.
Oh.
Wow.
You've done
So
your work.
if you've been
you have an
contracted by a
invoice.
county.
Yes.
They're going to pay you 100,000 shillings. Just know that you're getting 50,000.
Yes. Now, what he told me was the jaw-dropping variety of information. He told me, but then it's gone up. I said, to what? He said 70. I said, you're kidding.
What do you mean?
I said, then why would you bother? He said, I'm just explaining to you. He said, I listened to your show and the other one was always talking about the madness that we have. He said, 70.
And who's this money going to?
70%.
Who's this money going to? Are they splitting it from procurement
Different
to the
people.
guy
That
across
is-
board?
You, that is not your problem.
My problem, oh.
Your problem is
You're getting your 30.
you're getting your 30.
So as you're quoting, just factor in.
Make sure that 30 of yours is 100.
Yes.
I get it. I get it.
How much will it cost you to do this job? X. What's your markup? X plus 30% or X plus whatever. All right, now.
Recoup the 70% that you know you're going to give to these
For you, it
fellas.
has to be X plus 70.
It's plus 70.
Bas.
Sheesh.
And by the way, it is considered normal.
It's normal.
Now, you tell me, when an absurdity like that becomes normal,
Yeah.
what do you think has happened to us?
We've lost it.
More out. Do you see the window? That window. Open out. It's done.
It's
Finished.
madness.
It's madness.
It's madness. It's
It's
absolute madness.
Can I tell you something very quickly?
Tell me
Yes.
something very quickly.
Zambians are at the vote.
Today.
And there will be a winner announced today.
Uh-huh.
However, the campaigns have been quite violent. And hopefully we'll end up in a peaceful selection. But Zambians voted in the nationwide elections after a tense campaign dominated by economic woes and the impact of the pandemic. 16 candidates are vying for the top seat, but the frontrunners are incumbent Edgar Lungu and his nemesis and tycoon Hakainde Hichilema, 59, who are facing off at the polls for the third time against each other. Hichilema, who is running for a sixth time, is supported by an alliance of 10 parties. You guys thought here now these Okoma, Okowa. 10 parties have come together and said, now we're following. Hundreds of people waited in
Jubilee is 11.
Right, there you go. Hundreds of people waited in long queues in the dark to cast ballots on at a secondary school in the Matero township of Lusaka. President Lungu was among the first people to vote in Lusaka. After casting his ballot at a school in Chawama, a poor neighborhood, Lungu said Zambians are ready to vote and they have come out in numbers. Zambia has been taking a hit economically in the last 1 year, at actually more than 1 year, and COVID came along and made things quite worse. So it'll be interesting to see what this will be.
So televised address by the president, Edgar Lungu,
Lungu
wishing
yesterday.
people to go to the ballot and maintain peace. And he's sitting there. He will remain president until a new president is sworn in
winner.
and declared winner and sworn in when he'll hand over power. And he's very hopeful that he'll be handing over power to himself because he will be the one
next
declared winner.
Do we sense or see similarities to our electoral process here?
Just a little
How?
bit.
How?
Are we better?
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
How?
I think the purveyors of all the issues surrounding our electoral processes here could teach them a lesson or two. It's something we've actually managed to export. This ability to guarantee certain things in an election.
All right, coming to the top of the hour. There's a headline at the back page of the Nation today. IEBC tenders row threatens poll calendar. Procurement Review Board has ordered the IEBC to put the process of getting a new electronic integrated electoral management system on hold. So that is some of the headwinds that IEBC is facing as they start preparing for that general election. Of course, you're talking about procurement. Everybody's going to jump in. There are people who've been waiting for the last 4 years just for this moment. And then they don't win. It's going to be chaotic. But, well, don't we know that these are the things that happen? Keep it right here. In the next hour, we talk about We start our conversation on education. Today, it's education, education, education. Good morning, it's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Deputy President William Ruto has dismissed the meeting of his rivals ODM leader Raila Odinga and One Kenya Alliance leaders. Ruto said while meeting with grassroots leaders in Ruiru, Kiambu County, that the meeting they held on Tuesday at State House, Mombasa, was selfish and unnecessary.
They dismembered their own NASA. Now they are camped in State House. Not to help Uhuru Kenyatta deliver to 45 million Kenyans, but they've gone there for their own selfish agenda of sharing positions and sharing power.
Ruto further said that President Uhuru Kenyatta didn't initiate the meeting as he wasn't interested in supporting individuals who destroyed their Jubilee party.
And they are so shameless that they are going to a man they have never supported, they have never voted for, they have not gone to support him deliver on his agenda. They've gone there for selfish reasons. And they expect that Uhuru Kenyatta will help them so that they can work against us who campaigned, supported, and voted for Uhuru Kenyatta.
Meanwhile, three leaders from Mount Kenya, Moses Kuria, Mwangi Kiunjiri and Martha Karua, have also dismissed the Mombasa State House meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leaders Raila Odinga, as well as the Oka leaders. They say the president was unfair as he failed to invite a representative from the Mount Kenya region to the meeting. The leaders also say that the meeting was aimed at deciding the next presidential candidate, insisting that come next year, the region must have a presidential representative in the ballot box.
I was around TSP. Mother Karua was Nakenya and Moses Kuria was Chama Chakazi. Right now, we are three and we have said we are allocating ourselves duties, approach other people.
So this is a forum not to define tomorrow's coalition. It could very well end up being that.
60% of the leaders who were in that meeting are from one region. The Honorable Paranya, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and the Honorable Moses Wetangula. And because the president cannot be said to come from a particular region.
The two Embu brothers who allegedly died in the hands of police officers will today be laid to rest at their parents' home. The family will first hold a service for the two at Kianjakoma Primary School from 11 a.m. According to the family, the two will be buried in one grave due to the relationship they shared. Here's the family spokesperson, Susan Ndwiga.
Tulionelea vizuri masanduku yawe mawili, lakini tutawapumzisha kwa shimo moja. Kwa sababu walienda pamoja, kwa sababu wa vijana walikuwa wamependana sana, hawakuwa wanaachana, na ndio tumesema tu wakae mahali pamoja.
The family lawyer Njuguna Njoroge says they'll not rest until justice is served.
We will follow this issue until to the logical conclusion. We want to say that it is about time that the police in this country become the protectors of the people and not the perpetrators of crime.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
what
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room, just for our listeners.
All right, building up on these Nairobi city streets today, Jogoo Road now all the way through to the roundabout at City Mortuary, or rather at City Stadium. Speaking of City Mortuary roundabout, there's some traffic on Gong Road and headed in that direction. We're looking at also heightened levels of traffic on Langata Road, getting towards the city centre. Quite hot and heavy in the CBD as well. Coming out of Westlands also has built up quite some going towards Muthui, which everybody's using today to get out towards Thika Road or then through towards the city centre. So let's keep an eye on those. CBD looks like it's going to get quite packed today. What is going to happen, and I'm telling you right now, Mombasa Road is going to be crazy. If you've not left, you might want to rethink your movements for the day. But in the meantime, let's just know from those who might be there already or who would have left. SpiceFM KE is how you can get in touch on Twitter. You can text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 6 minutes after 7 this Friday, the 13th day of August 2021. The Situation Room enters the second hour, and we begin the hour with the day's proverb.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole. You leave your secret everywhere as you go.
Wherever you traverse, wherever you go to, you will be leaving.
Wherever the sack goes,
you'll be leaving bits of it. And that sack is with you because you're carrying it.
Where is the proverb from?
This one, they say it's a Nilotic proverb.
So which Nilots? Plain Nilots, River Lake Nilots?
All join.
Throw in hill Nilots.
All Nilots. All of them.
While you're at it. The origin is the same. It's now the eventual place of residence now that we're discussing, but they're Nilots.
Okay. Must be those ones that know how to deal, to do proper farming with and get grain.
Well, you know what is also strange is that it's not that there were any who didn't. It is the focus. Because if you look at, do you know why Kisumu is actually called what it is? A trading center. It was understood by the communities around the lake that there would be seasons of drought. So what would happen is, ordinarily you would simply go from one family member to another. It's called somo. So somebody actually gives you food for you to tide you over.
Okay.
Now, Kisumu was a place where you could say it was a center for barter trading. You went there, you had a cow, but you didn't have maize. You had a goat, but you didn't have a sheep. Yes.
So it actually is Kisomo.
Sumo is precisely what I just said.
Kisumo.
Mo. Not Kisumu.
Kisumo.
Kisumo. Okay. Okay. So now let's have that conversation about selection into Form 1 places. So what happens? Pupils in Standard 8, at some point early on in the year, are told you need to select the schools that you'd like to go to in secondary. Remember, we have a policy of 100% transition. So it's no longer should you pass your exams, what secondary school would you like to go to? It's what secondary schools would you like to go to, period.
After your exams.
After your exams. And then there's a categories. There's a national school, there's an extra county school, and there's a county school, and I think there's is that it? Or is there a local school? I'm not sure. We'll be told by the experts. So the students then select, and after the exams are done, like we saw this year, unlike previously when secondary school heads would sit down and look at marks and then select, this time it's the electronic system that has a database of the pupils that have sat the exam that is then looking at performance, selection, and placing. Performance, selection, place. So we've seen very many stories now of students who've been placed to schools that they say, I had not selected this, And we've also seen the Education Cabinet Secretary saying the issue of how the students were selecting schools is also a big concern, because there were some, for example, whose heads did not submit their selection. So there are those students who don't have any record of some schools that they selected. And then there's the issue of congestion. So how many marks qualify you into national school? How many marks qualify you into the county or extra county schools? But some of these students are sitting the exams in a private school, primary private schools. We also have private secondary schools. So which students go to the private secondary schools? Do they select? We can say they do, because then they're the ones who will go and apply to a private secondary school. Can I join your school?
Yeah.
And now we've seen, it was in the papers the other day, that the Kenya Private Schools Association is talking about, how about you include us at that point of selection, so that then the students can select us at that point. We have very many questions around this, and that's why we have brought in the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association. Our friend Muthui Kasanga joins us on the line. Good morning, Muthui.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the show. We'd have loved to have you in the studio, but we understand that, where are you? Outside the county.
Yeah. Outside the county on that dreaded Mombasa road.
Yeah. Tough days. We have tough
She
days.
has grown horns in the last few, this Mombasa road.
Oh, yes. So, Muthui, have I done the introduction well? Have I missed out something in terms of what has happened?
You have captured sort of what has been happening pretty succinctly. But I just need to sort of just clarify one thing. Selection has been done by computer for quite a while now. It's not this year alone.
Okay.
That has been the norm. When it comes to selection, and I think that's where for me at least, I see the problem beginning. There is no formal process of exam registration for KCPE. So what schools do is they trigger, NEC triggers that the Kenya National Examination Council triggers the exam process by asking schools and parents to choose a school. So at the end, when you hear a child did not have schools picked for them, what they didn't have is they weren't registered for the exam. But because now it is becoming increasingly impossible for head teachers to get away with it, all it takes is for a parent to complain, oh, my name is not on the nominal roll when the time for confirmation comes. And therefore then they realize that they weren't registered for whatever reason a school decided not to register. I mean, this year you saw the cabinet secretary trying to sort out a child in Muthui County, where they turned up for the exam and they hadn't been registered. So he made sure that they sat for the exam because that's the law. And then consequences were triggered, I believe, from the Teacher Service Commission to sort out what happened there to make a school not register a child. That for me is where the problem begins. That right now we are in August, we are already registering children for the exam, but it's not actual exam registration, it is selection of schools. And what that does, it is too early. Kids choose schools without even knowing what they will score at the end of the year. And then now you get certain schools being oversubscribed, and then you get innocent mistakes because parents have not really understood what the selection process entails. I have seen, for instance, I was trying to guide somebody at my salon where I go, their child is now set for KCP in March 2021. And next year, this is KCSE KCP 2021. And the school gave them the whole list, countrywide, the entire database of schools. How is a parent supposed to choose from over 8,000 schools? Not 8,000, 4,000 secondary schools. They didn't extrapolate for the parents, narrowed down lists to help them focus. Like if I'm in Kajiado County, then I need to see the extra county schools in Kajiado. In fact, I need to see the national schools in Kajiado, the extra county schools in Kajiado, as well as perhaps others that can take my child. And then I look at the county schools and the sub-county schools. So you find one of the biggest issues we were sorting out, innocent parents who, made a choice without much guidance. And their child then, because they made the choices not understanding the dynamics, which the head teachers do understand, but then did get placed in a school they could even attend. So when a child gets, say, 302 marks, then they get taken to a sub-county school within the county, but that they cannot commute to. Sub-county schools tend to be day schools. So, for instance, if you're in Kitengela and you get taken to a school in Loitoktok, you see it's in Kajiado County, and the child qualifies to perhaps go to a sub-county school. But that sub-county school is in Loitoktok, which is really on the other right. It is so far away.
And it's a day school.
Kajiado. It's a day school because the child qualifies to go to a day school. But then, because the way the choices were made, then the government then slots them into a school because every child has to be allocated a school.
But why does this happen? Is it because the head teachers do not know what they should be doing? Is it because the county education directors of education are not doing their job? Why would this happen?
I personally, I think that the process is not clearly explained, especially in public schools. And in public schools, please let's not forget, like if you're dealing with 300 candidates, it can be difficult to coordinate everything, in my opinion. I'm trying to imagine what would go wrong. They might not have the resources perhaps I can't really explain it because I'm not in the public sector, but I can only imagine because I ran to help my people who I know in public schools and give them advice, telling them, make sure you choose schools in your sub-county. At least make sure it's near where you are. You can see it, in case your child doesn't get the marks to take them to a boarding school, that sort of thing. But
let me ask you this question.
Public schools hold talks with their parents to guide them on this process.
Since private schools also have students who sit the exams in Standard 8, tell us, what you who is in the private sector, what do you do? How do you get to communicate this issue of choices to the parents?
For us in the private sector as a whole, generally, look at it from the private school in the slum and to whichever school, we tend to have better parent engagement. Whatever means, SMS, newsletters, we communicate to parents. Private schools do communicate to parents. And that's the key. In my narrow experience, which is old, first and foremost, of public schools, and of the era of capitation, is that the public schools tend to be very limited resource-wise. Not that nowadays with technology these things cannot be done, but they tend to be limited, and they tend to sort of operate with a slightly more distanced method of engaging parents. That's the way I view it. I'm not trying to criticize what they do and what they don't do, but compared to private schools, we have a more open, and nearer relationship with parents. So therefore, we are able to sit and advise parents quicker, and therefore we have less fallout. Our fallout happens when occasionally we get very disadvantaged, especially on the top end, because of performance, where merit sometimes is minimized. But on the whole, when it comes to the process, our issues have largely been sorted out with the Ministry of Education. We did have in the past cabinet secretaries who actually said that private school kids did not cannot work expecting a public school space in secondary school. We had cabinet secretaries in the past who actually implemented such things of just blatant discrimination, or just on the basis of public-private, which is largely actually against the law. There are no two categories of citizenship in Kenya. So in the last sort of 3-4 years, we've not had the major issues we used to have in the past when it came to this election. What is clearly emerging is that, like right now, we are the Ministry of Education is tracking every child who starts Standard 8 in March, and they've asked head teachers to account for their Standard 8 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a tall order to ask whether we are in public or in private. Yes, schools are trying their best to track students, their own students, where they have gone, but the ideal would be to make that process very, very, watertight, and as where parents need a choice, that choice be given, because it's a transition point. It's a transition point, and as long as you're asked to choose, then that choice should be, availed. The whole full breadth of the choice should be availed to a parent, because the parent is asked to choose. So then don't, make all the choices. And that is where our ask that let's find a method of making sure that private secondary schools are captured in that. It will serve very many purposes. It will give option to those who really who wish to have that option, because these schools are registered under the Ministry of Education. We have the national schools, we have the extra county schools, we have the county schools, we have the sub-county schools, and we have the private schools, secondary schools, which are fully registered by the same Ministry of Education, and it is doable. I mean, as long as I know the issue then becomes funding, but that question of funding is a matter of when, not if. It is owed to all Kenyan children. It is so we can put it on the table for now that we know the government is facing constraints, but it is a matter of when. Not if the children deserve to be funded. It is so clear in the Constitution. So for now, if the Ministry of Education can work to open up that element of choice, so that the parent who really does not want to go to a public school, and they're there for various reasons. Their kids could be having learning difficulties, and they want a more specialist school or a kind of school that caters for that. They could be just parents who feel that the chance game of marks and is not what they want to subject their children to.
But Muthui,
they could be feeling that they know the quality of public education. We know right now the issues of schools that are so packed full.
Yes.
And it is not to the fault of the government in any way, other than the fact that our population has grown, and now that we have 100% transition, and we have stopped putting children through labor training because the laws actually forbid it. Then we need to have, take advantage of everything. After all, we are building roads using a PPP.
Well,
why can't we also just educate our kids using a PPP?
We have a national exam, the KCPE, which determines now going to secondary school. But this national exam is also administered in private schools. There are we have children sitting this exam who are in private institutions. They make the transition to secondary school, and we find that a lot who have done this exam while doing KCPE, while in a private school, will more likely than not go to a private secondary school, which is normally the case. I'm just finding that you won't have many who will then move from a private secondary school to a private primary school to a public secondary school. Mostly they will continue in the same sector. So if you're able,
actually, that's not quite true.
Is it not?
That's not quite true.
Do you have a lot of students who are moving from?
We have a very strange dynamic. We are in Kenya, so Kenyans go to private primary schools and then go to public secondary schools.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
And then now we have a healthy mix of parents who have been either in public or in private, who then backflow into private schools.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, what you were talking about then in terms of funding then should not be the issue, because it came out to say that, all right, if somebody was looking at it that going to secondary school, which is more expensive than primary school, if I were going to a private school, then the burden of cost then is on, and how are we going to be able to afford it? Now you're saying that it shouldn't be an issue. How would it be sorted out? That if the government doesn't take the brunt of the responsibility in transitioning all of these students in terms of funding, what in your mind would be able to make it possible for students to afford at private as they would at public?
100% transition means that the government looks at the KCPE numbers and provides funding for every child who is in a school doing
At the public
KCPE.
level.
And that has been happened. No, it has never discriminated. As long as you enter a public school, you get funded.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Remember, all children sit for KCPE with 100% transition. As we roll back 2 weeks before Form 1's reported, every child had been allocated money.
Right. So now we are saying, if
your question
some of
should be, what happens to that money when a child moves from a public school to a private? What happens to their funding?
That is my question. How, if we're saying that a number of these should be given, like let the private schools be part of this when it comes to selection, that there are many who may be worried about how we're going to sort this out. So are you saying that one of the suggestions would then be this money that you would otherwise give to a student who went to the public school be given to the same student who will go to a private school?
Let me mix you up a little bit by asking this question. Supposing every child in Kenya reported to the school they were allocated, every single, they were 1.2 million.
Yep.
About maybe 150 were in prisons, whatever. So forget the 150 private candidates. Let us say 1.1. Okay. Then what happens to the funding when these children in second term in Form 2 move back to a private school?
Before we answer that question, let's actually ask it this way. Is there budgetary allocation for all the students at secondary level? Because we know that, yes, there is capitation that and goes to the public primary schools.
Yes.
Public primary schools, we know there is capitation, and the students, the head teachers report the numbers. Now, when they're making a budget for the secondary school, are they using data from the public secondary schools, or are they using data from KCPE?
To allocate Form 1 data, money in Form 1, it is data from KCPE. It is data from that 100% transition.
Okay. So then there are questions then to be asked of the education ministry.
As far as I know, the Treasury allocates according to KCPE. Those who qualify, and those who qualify are children in school centers, not the ones who do in prisons, not the ones who do in the private centers, not the adult learners.
Okay.
If you see what I mean.
Then in that case, then there's a question has to be asked.
So every child gets money, but not every child benefits from it. And there is an accountability issue there. There is an accountability issue because in total we have close to by October we shall have nearly 500,000 going on to 700,000-800,000 children in private secondary schools.
How many?
Well, that is look at that amount of money. It's 22,500, and ask yourself where has it been going, and why isn't the student who was allocated to that money benefiting from it?
Are we saying that out of the 1.2 million, for example, who sat KCPE this year for last year's exam, how many of them were in private schools?
At the moment, every year now, ever since 100% transition, we have low numbers entering at the beginning. So at the moment, we have maybe about. Give me a second.
Now let's talk about the ones that sat. The ones that sat the
KCPE.
Yes. The ones that sat KCPE, the last KCPE, how many were in private schools?
Private centers. About what is it? It's about 20%, 22% of that number.
Okay.
Sat for KCPE in a private center.
So let's say about 200,000 odd. 220,000 odd.
So at the moment we have about at the beginning of August we had about 165,000 for one places available.
Okay.
In the private schools.
So this
of those, just under half have been taken up. Just under half. We are now doing the reconciliations with the Ministry of Education.
How are these taken up?
Parents come to an individual school and ask for a place for their child. they go to the school they want to go to.
Okay. Now, the push by the KSPA.
Most likely it will be a boarding school. You'll find it's children who have been parents who wanted their children in a boarding school,
Yeah.
but their marks don't allow. So we tend to have the majority of the schools tend to have the 250 to 330 score. That's the average. That's the where our main criteria of entry is. We also have a good number of private schools that cater now for the below 50%, which is below 250 in KCP, because those inevitably get allocated a day school, and many parents would want their children to experience a boarding school. The environment, the more focused environment of a boarding school. We also have some parents who increasingly now, especially in some of the urban areas, who are looking for high quality day schools, because you see that's the problem, because KCP is like a massive interview.
Yeah.
KCP is like a massive interview. All it does, it slots students into a selective system of secondary schooling. So then you have parents who want, because as a result, public day schools have a very poor reputation for an academic performance, and then they tend to be very poorly funded. So now you get parents who have that lower spectrum of marks, or even sometimes even high marks, looking for a good quality day school. So there's now we are seeing a few, like a growing niche for high quality meaning very well, very good infrastructure and performance above average compared to other day schools. Parents are beginning to see that is an advantage for them, because there's value in day schools. We in Kenya we have a mentality about secondary boarding schools, but when you get a good day school, there's very good value, especially when it comes to parent involvement in those very critical teenage years. So we have, especially the Catholic Church has some pretty impressive ones in the city. And we are beginning slowly to see a good number of private entrepreneurs and schools putting up day schools that are rivaling a performance even of some very well-established boarding schools.
That's true. We are speaking with Muthui Kasanga, the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association. The Kenya Private Schools Association wants to sit on the table at the selection table, basically for standard 8 students as they are selecting what schools to go to into secondary school. And that's what we're asking. Why do you want to play a part in this, and to what extent do you want to play a part in this? Let's take a break at 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're live on SpiceFM around the country and also around the world via SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. We'll be back shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Gone are the days when hiring should be about hitting the brick wall, because we understand how much it means to have the ideal candidate working for you and your organization. That's why at Standard Jobs website, we offer the complete employer dashboard that lets you interact fully with applicants, lets you track the full hiring process through a qualified specific smart search tool. What's more, we offer a full-on custom branded page that lets your company stand out with your own to choose custom page. So visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/jobs today and let's help you find the next ideal candidate for you.
Mostly cloudy conditions at 14 in Nairobi, highs of 21 today. It's cloudy in Nyeri as well, coming down to lows of 13. We'll see highs of 20. 14 will be the low in Nakuru. It's sunny at 18, highs of 24. Looking at highs of 23 in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 18. Sunny at 21 in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 19. 21 and sunny in Kakamega, highs of 28. 29 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's raining at 22. It's also raining in Malindi at 23, highs of 29. Light rain at 18 in Kampala with highs of 26. 30 will be the high in a partly sunny Dar es Salaam at 22. It's 8 degrees now and weather dropping in Johannesburg. Clear, however, highs of 14 and lows of 4. The rain showers continue in Lagos at 25 with highs of 29. 32 will be the high in Kinshasa today. It's clear currently at 21.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Okay, so things are going to slow down on Gong Road. That's because, I don't know what it is, pillar, tower, something has fallen in the middle of the road, trying to be moved by a lorry. So things are going to slow down considerably just at the Lenana Junction. And that might take some time to get out. It's affecting traffic that's coming on from the bypass and also traffic that's going down Gong Road. So let's watch out for that. We're already seeing it building up. Also seen another accident on Thika Road today, and that has also slowed things down. Can we please be careful? Visibility is quite poor today and the clouds are very low. So let's use our lights and slow it down just a touch. Unfortunately, another one at Githurai on Thika Road. So looks like it's that morning, guys. Mombasa Road. Folks are saying it needs a hardship allowance because it's actually quite difficult to traverse Mombasa Road this morning. The roads are getting narrower and narrower. Your options of the ICD route still available, but everybody is using that to try and connect to the southern bypass. So this one is going to need some patience. Let's see how we can apply that through the morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
24 minutes to
94.
8. Kenya's biggest conversation continues with Eric Latif, Siti Muga Nduoko in the Situation Room. Our guest this hour is Muthui Kasanga, the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association. Form 1 selection is what we're discussing. And just before we went to the break, Muthui was just giving us the lowdown and the rundown of what happens. So the selection that happens, and then after KCPE, depending on the marks, you're then posted to a school that, matches your marks, whether it's national school, extra county school, or sub-county school, none of which is private.
No.
Even for the students who sit KCPE from private schools, then they end up going into the national schools. And then, now, depending on the parents and their choices, then there are secondary schools where parents now choose, I want to take my child here. And what we're seeing is, according to what we're hearing from Muthui, the marks ranging from around 250 to 300 marks, 330 marks, many of them will then go into good boarding schools, private schools that they choose. Others will go into good private day schools. The question, though, is should private schools be included in the list that students are selecting before joining secondary school? And how would that be done? When you hear that, CT, what do you think? Because, you see, as a standard 8, even those in Muthui's private school, they are choosing either a national school, an extra county school, a county school, a sub-county school. Now, if you bring in the mix, the private schools, in what category do they fall?
This conversation begins, in my mind, from the point of the exam. There is no separate exam for private schools, and there is no separate exams for schools that are referred to as public schools. So, again, all these students, as Muthui has put it well, Kenyans.
Yep.
So, if you're talking about an equal footing for everyone, that equal footing is what enables people who fall into the category of owners of schools or those who are in private schools to actually thrive, because the opportunity and the option is there. The unfortunate thing is every time we talk of private schools, people think of high-end private schools. There's an entire range of private schools, right from 2 rooms in some backwaters to something that is akin to a cowshed where students learn in shifts. All those are private schools because they're individuals who own them. They're not government owned. Now, if you're talking about a level playing field, the argument also has to be fueled by information. Now, apart from just the one that I've put across, even those who argue that only those in government schools should get certain privileges, I understand this argument, and there's a reason why they say that. But I think the argument is based on this skewed understanding that by its very
Private
definition
means privileged.
Privilege, and those who are in those private schools have money. So since they have money, why do they want to compete for this same pot that other people who don't have money have? But therein lies the small little print of discrimination. If it's an opportunity that is being provided for Kenyans, in my view, let everybody have that opportunity.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there are 2 issues that you've raised there. We can come to the second one, which is whether there should be that weighting affirmative action quota system that Muthui was talking about that was happening even previously, in terms of if you have scored this kind of marks in a private school and if you've scored the same marks in a public school, are you weighted the same when it comes to Form 1 selection? I think we can actually now get into that conversation as well. But the first question that I'd like you to respond to is what you're currently pushing, Muthui, which is saying that you want to be included when it comes to the list of selection of schools. How do you see that working out?
At the moment, the slots are there is affirmative action still being applied. You still get kids from marginalized areas, girls from marginalized areas. All that, many factors being considered, and so far nobody has a problem with the formula that they use for affirmative action.
Okay.
Here, when you hear, arguments that kids in private schools don't deserve capitation, it's the misconstrued view that capitation is an affirmative action fund. Capitation is not an affirmative action fund. There are bursaries, there are other things that now come to cater for affirmative action. This capitation, the way it is structured, is actually for every child. If the private schools wanted to kick a fuss over this, it would be on capitation, because that is one place where they're distinctly discriminated against without a valid, without even a constitutional backing to denying a Kenyan child capitation. It is a fund to a child. It is not a fund to a school. And that's the misconstrued. Even legislators, they think that way. They think capitation is a fund to a school. Yes, some funds of that capitation are allocated to a school, but the full, the way the capitation was structured, it was not an affirmative action school, nor was it ever meant to fund schools. It was always meant to make it easy for parents to take their children to school. It was meant to reduce the burden of education on the parent, never on the school. For schools, they have, SECEB and other not SECEB, what are they called? They have other funds that fund the infrastructure of schools. And then, of course, the communities. We have this very flawed method of building schools via communities, via Rambe. So schools look like they are communities largely. So if a community is wealthy, they will have very well set up schools. If it is not, then the schools look like, the poverty, reflect the poverty in that area.
Right.
So yes, funding of public schools needs to be sorted out. But
Muthui, that argument is a bit skewed, if I may just chime in, because yes, it's skewed. It's skewed very much to the left, because many of these so-called public schools that are built by Harambes, one of the things that used to happen and has still happened, whether they're church-based or community-based, is the government takes them over. So it isn't as though...
By taking over, what do you mean?
Oh, the government provides teachers.
Right.
Now that there's CDF, CDF can actually help the schools grow and develop.
Right.
So essentially, the input, the seed is planted by the community, by the church, but with time, and it doesn't really take long, the running of it is usually then in the hands of the government.
But there's no contradiction with
Correct.
what Muthui is saying.
No.
Because Muthui is saying
Correct.
it will reflect the capacity of that community to establish that school. If a community is poor, the school infrastructure, that to begin with, is going to reflect that.
Yes, that is
there
the
a contradiction?
interpretation of what she said. My interpretation
That is what
was...
I'm saying.
That is what she's saying.
Oh, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
No, that's
Yes.
not what I heard.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
So if this is what
That's
we're
what
looking
I
at,
was saying.
Mudeo, then if all of these things are clear reality, obviously this did not come about today or with this recent, jostle that we've seen in the last 1 week having to extend, registration and such. So why hasn't there been a clear push for this capitation to then be available for students who are also in private schools? Because yes, for the image that is put out there is that private schools are luxurious schools all the time, right? But it is clear that that is not the case. Why hasn't there been a previous push that is clear for us to see that, we're all saying, let those in private schools also have this money that's available for every child in the country?
I believe that's a journey we're already on. We've already petitioned Parliament. There's a petition sitting in Parliament to just relook at how that funding is passed to students and to track it backwards so that the system is put in place. The Ministry of Education already has a system that is at work right now for university students where they get capitated and the funding does move with the students. So if a student starts, say, in a private university and decides to change course in the middle of their course to a public institution, their funding moves with them.
Okay.
And the method of transfer is extremely clear.
Okay.
For basic education, we find that process has never been, there is no transparency for that process. And that's why we are asking now, given that we are going into 2023 where we have 2 exams, next year we have 2 exams. We have the March exam and we have the December exam. And the December exam is critical. It comes in with the first cohort of CBC. So it's a double intake. If we do not factor in all the spaces we have in the country, we are staring at a disaster.
Right.
That's transition. Yeah, we are staring at a disaster. And as it were, the roadmap for CBC has been mapped out and it looks good. But if we are not working as one wheel, because the students, like Latif said, Eric said, they sit one exam. They don't sit 2 exams. There's not one exam for private and one exam
for public. Yeah.
It is one exam. Yeah. So we are all exiting students into that void without a good and well coordinated plan on how to ensure that we do not deny children access to education. And children are being denied access. They might be a very small minority, but their parents still looking for a school right now for one.
Yes.
Yep, that's true. I have a
Their
problem
parents still
though.
looking for that they are being denied a chance because they were not given all the options available for them to look at. And because we are using KCP as a filtration exam, like an interview exam, then the stakes are so high. So I'm hoping as we as we exit the grade 6 into grade 7, we bring down that temperature. We make that transition as easy as possible for parents. And we can only do that by busting open all the spaces available for that transition.
I have a problem, Mudeo. A problem that I have is with mixing private and public in terms of funding by public. Now, let me start with what you've just said. We have many parents today who have not taken their children to school, not because they have not received an admission letter, but because they have seen either the school that the child was admitted to is far from home and it's a sub-county school, it's a day school, it's an issue of selection. Or they see that the school that their child has been admitted to is congested and they have questions that they don't trust the quality of education that their child is going to receive. Or many others. So those ones could be sitting at home wondering what to do. There are those that know where to take their children to in terms of the choices of private schools that they have. They approach those private schools. The children are subjected to whatever kind of selection or intake criteria the private school has. they join. Others are not doing that because of maybe fearing costs or just lack of awareness of the number of private schools available to them, which is what you and your association should be doing. Create awareness, let everybody know what private schools are in whatever region, and then now address the other issue of those that are fearing to bring their children to school because they are fearing that the fees could be higher than they could afford. That is a separate conversation. My problem with getting money from the public coffers and taking it to private schools is that we are privatizing a basic right. Education is a basic right. We should be developing and working towards developing our public school system. Yes, so for so many years we have not developed our infrastructure. That does not mean that we stop developing infrastructure. Right now we are talking about congestion in secondary schools. That does not mean that we stop our focus in building more secondary schools to take the 1.2 million, 1.5 million students that will be sitting KCPE in future. If we start saying, because currently actually what happens is many of the children who are receiving bursaries and support, that they are in private schools. So there are people who are actually receiving money from the public and taking it to private schools. I have an issue with taking money from public and financing a private sector. Get your own money, grow your own sector, but our money should be developing our public schools.
Now, let me put it in another way so that you get it. And I'll go back to something I said about capitation. Capitation is not an affirmative action fund. And remember, we are discussing Kenyans. We are not discussing foreigners here. Number two, the European model, and this is a Northern European model. Let us be very clear which model it is the most expensive and most difficult to implement, which is what you're talking about. Where education is fully public. Look at America, look at the Western world, look at the Eastern world, the Asian countries, look at the developing world. The reality on the ground is that in education, even the SDGs acknowledge that in this world we live in today, as developing countries, there is no escaping the fact that the private schools are there, that they cater not just for the wealthy, that they actually provide access. Access is the most basic function of a government. It's just to make sure there's a school. Whether it has teachers or not is another thing altogether. That's an issue of quality. But just basic provision of access to education, that is a function that private schools in Kenya sort out. Add in all the other elements of ensuring that there's, that there's quality education and whatnot. That is why we have regulators, to make sure that these things happen. After all, like I said earlier, we still have, because of the way that public facilities are started by private people, by private citizens. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that's what a Harambee school is. Mm-hmm. That is a private initiative by citizens of a place. That is why you have these schools that every year are splattered in the newspapers in places like Malindi, in places like Lamu, in places like Northeastern, where they don't have walls. Not because there is not funding from the government, but because that funding can never be enough, given where we are in our country today. So whether you like it or not, however people feel about where public money goes, remember these are Kenyans. They are not foreigners. We are not dealing with foreigners. I know there is a story yesterday that sort of hit the waves about a foreign school in Kenya. That is not that kind of school we are discussing. We are discussing Kenyans. In Mathare, in Kibera, going to a school because it is the only one with a space for them, because the nearest public school is packed to the rafters. So what happens when that is not enough? Do people just sit back and wait for government to provide, or do they walk where they can find some education? And as long as we have Kenyans holding that opinion, we will never have consensus, and we'll never agree about what it is, what it means to provide access to education.
In the short to medium term,
right now, as we wait for the transition here, we, the private sector, are holding a solution to our hands and offering it to the government. We are not, while we are discussing capitation, we are not saying that this is the only way we'll offer these places. We are saying if you want to hold on to capitation for a little while longer, because we know it's a matter of when, not if it is owed to Kenyan children. That capitation is owed to us. But we are saying here are 165,000 places. Decongest some schools.
Some public schools.
They are. The parents know that this is pay, but supplement the parent. Tell that parent that money is theirs. They are
That's true.
taxpayers as well. They are not foreigners.
In as far as we're
That's my
saying
whole
that,
point.
I
And
agree
we
with
have
you.
to understand that this is the Kenyans we have.
I
this
agree
is
with
not
you.
another Kenya. Kenya is not
Short-
Norway.
short to
Kenya is
mid-
not Norway.
Muthui, you're really passionate about this, aren't you?
Short to medium term, let's do it to address the current problem. But also, let's not forget, we are in the current quagmire because the government over the years has neglected the government's job, which is expanding our schools as our population is growing. Now, if we leave that alone and we tell the government, it's okay, you made a mistake 25 years ago, you can continue making the mistake for the next 25 years, we'll have a problem.
No, we'll have a bigger problem.
And
we already have a problem.
We have to tell the government, look, it comes to an end. The next 5 years is okay. We are going to see how to strike a balance. You can send capitation to private schools for every child that gets into education, but it's students.
Let's
students
agree, it is not being
students
sent to schools. It
to
is being given to a child.
to students in private schools, right? And that will go to the
Yes.
students in private schools, but that should come to an end. At some point, the government should be put to task. How many new schools have you developed in various areas? If we are talking about 1 shilling, 1 vote, and all those things, the government should also be asked, if you have a constituency with a population of X, how many sub-county schools do you have there? How many county schools do you have there? That is a conversation that we should be championing.
Eric, can I ask another question?
Ask.
With education, it takes up the biggest budget of our
national
our
budget,
national
yeah.
budget
Yes.
every year. Yeah, it's the biggest. Yeah, and
Yes.
we are largely compliant to. Or very near compliant. I think we are compliant to commitments we have made to the world on funding education. Yet we are very happy to accept that private hospitals in health provision, which is this is your body, can serve that fundamental purpose of access to healthcare. Yet we don't want to accept that private educators can do the same job. Why is there that dichotomy?
Eric Latif
What is
does
it
not. Eric
next?
Latif believes that the government should also be doing the same. Health, education, we should be looking at development of public facilities. The government has
And then
neglected its job.
that
The
can-
government has allowed private players in government to open up these facilities and allow this to go to the dogs.
It's
I
like
have a problem.
they've acquired partners in the private sector, and they've even allowed the private sector to play the role that the government actually should be playing.
That said, doesn't private sector then bring in elements and new thought on quality?
They do.
Does.
Absolutely.
They do.
Absolutely.
They most
That
certainly
government
do.
can learn from.
And don't we see in countries that have very vibrant private sectors that things like healthcare provision and innovation is there, and now we are seeing a lot of innovation from the private sector in education. Isn't that appreciated?
Without
It
a
must
shadow
be.
of a doubt, yes.
It must be.
Then why should we wage war? Because you see, that is it. It's being put as an either or rather than things that can work complementary, together.
Yes.
On
We
a
need
subject
to
such
always
as
work
this
together.
one, that
And
is
I
actually
agree,
dear.
I agree. The better the public facilities are there, you will not find the size of the private sector we have in Kenya. That is a fact. But as we are right now, I want to just end on that point. I can see time is running out. Let us at least come to the table and make sure no child suffers, because
True.
we have these facilities, and they are sitting at about 52% occupation. Take advantage. It's there. It's like
I'm
saying
actually
a road is
agreeing
a
with you
private
on
road
that
and the
note, Muthui, and I'm saying
Me
that
too.
if you're not on a war footing, you won't actually make any headway. You have to be on a war footing on such an
Exactly.
issue.
Yep.
Yes. This isn't one of those genteel
This one
conversations
you
you have.
take head on.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will not happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also take up some bit of a role here in creating awareness so that people know what private schools are available near them and what choices they have, so that people then can start making those informed choices. And also, in terms of cost as well, look at there's this affordable school near me and I can afford to take my child there, I'll choose to take my child there.
Yeah.
Asante sana Mudheu. Mudheu Kasanga is the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association. Next one, come to the studio, please. Will you?
Thank you.
Asante sana. This is Kenya's
I'm coming to studio.
Wonderful.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it right here, and the next hour
I'll
we continue.
leave at 4 a.m. to make sure I'm there by 7.
Yes, we'll have breakfast for you here, ready.
Oh, you better.
The conversation continues. It's all about education today. We want to talk about the unions and how unions are doing. And then we'll also talk about secondary school and placement to universities and colleges. How are students selecting the universities and colleges that they want to join? What role do parents and guardians play in this? What roles do the teachers and their school guardians also play in this? We'll be speaking with those people who are in charge of that particular process. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. As we celebrate Youth Week, 2 families are mourning their sons who died in mysterious circumstances. This comes as one family will lay their sons to rest today in Embu County, whereas another Kitengela family whose sons were killed in mistaken identity continue to seek for justice. The Kitengela 4, Fred Mureithi, his younger brother Victor Mwangi, and their 2 cousins Mike, George and Nicholas Musa were brutally murdered last Sunday after they were mistaken to be cattle thieves.
Kwangu vile niliona walikuwa wamedugwa na kitu chafu. Shimo ilikuwa kubwa, imeingia badani kwa ubongo. Walikuwa na baadhi sehemu yenye walikuwa wameenda, na huyu mmoja wao sister yake amenunua shamba huko na amejenga. Wakaenda huko on Friday wakajivijari.
Nilikuwa na ule Viki, alikuja kwangu jioni, alikuta nikipika chakula, nikamwambia siungoje kidogo tukule, juu leo ni birthday yako. Akaniambia wacha nifike hapa kwa duka narudi saa hii. Akanipea taka 5 lakini hakurudi.
Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea has ordered the closure of all wines and spirit outlets in Bahati Sub-County in Nakuru. This is as police continue investigating the killer illicit brew that has so far led to the death of 10 people and others are seeking medication in hospital. Residents also say that police and local chiefs received bribes from the illicit brew sellers, making it hard to stop the vice.
Kama kuna askari ambaye hayuko cooperative ameletwa hapa naye kazi yake kutembea kwa vituo ya pombe akirokota pesa, chief uko na jukumu la kuleta report useme ofisa fulani na fulani hawezi fanya area yangu sababu anakula nini? Hongo. Hongo ndio mnachukua ndipo sahi pombe haiishi.
Former Kwale woman representative Zainab Chizuga is expected to be buried today. Zainab passed away yesterday at a Nairobi hospital while undergoing COVID-19 treatment. According to the funeral schedule, Chizuga's body will be transported this morning to her home in Golini, Kwale. Kwale's Governor Salim Vuria will lead the event with the assistance of Matuga MP Kasim Tandaza, among other leaders. Chizuga is the mother of former KTN presenter Mwanaisha Chizuga. President Uhuru Kenyatta is among other leaders who've sent their messages of condolence.
Tumepoteza mama mshupavu. Nimepata habari hizi na mshtuko. Hata jana mtoto wake aliniambia kuwa alianza kupata nafuu hospitalini, lakini hivyo hivyo tumshukuru Mungu, ni kazi ya Mungu na watu wasema haina makosa.
Alikuwa ni mtetezi wa kina mama, alikuwa ni mtetezi wa watoto, alikuwa ni mtetezi wa vijana, na mimi binafsi nimefanya naye kazi kwa ile bunge lililopita, na alikuwa ni mama mkakamavu.
And finally, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has arrested 3 suspects who are believed to have stolen goods worth over 30 million shillings. A trader reported to the DCI that he'd lost goods on transit. The detectives were able to recover some of the goods and arrested the suspects involved. During the operation, 120 pieces of tires that were being loaded to trailers for transit were recovered. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, so what are we looking at this morning? Quite still some traffic. Ngong Road, that issue still continues. Again, we have a hold up because somebody has been knocked down, and because of that, everybody now has spilled into the streets. It doesn't look really pretty at the moment. We're also looking at another issue around the Kariobangi roundabout. It's heavy at the service lane this morning. Traffic at the roundabout. The section between the bypass and the Karen Center, also an issue on Ngong Road. So we're looking at Ngong Road with quite a number of issues this morning. We keep looking at what's going on in different parts of the city. We still have some traffic on the Thika Superhighway joining with what's coming off of Kiambu Road. So let's keep an eye out for some of these things. Jogo Road also looks heavy but not too bad. Just around the Makadara station, but looks better then. Mombasa Road in and outbound right around the Maradaima is still heavy. Keep an eye on things this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5 minutes
the
coming
only
up to
way
6
to
minutes
start.
after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation continues today, Friday the 13th of August 2021. Let's begin the hour with the day's proverb.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Mm-hmm.
You will leave it everywhere you go.
Mm.
Everywhere that sack goes.
A lovely trail too.
Yes.
Well, you might as well just have thrown it on the floor, on the ground.
Yeah, that is also an option.
Mm.
You say it's a Nilotic, Kenyan Nilotic.
No, just Nilotic.
Nilotic.
Mm.
Initially
No
I said it's
specialization
Kenyan.
here, just Nilotic.
It's Nilotic.
Mm.
Okay. It's a Nilotic proverb. Okay. Sawa. Welcome to our audience on KTN Home who've joined us now until the top of the hour. We live stream this show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're live on SpiceFM around the country. And now we are on KTN Home. So in the last hour, we were talking with Muthui Kasanga, the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association. We'll soon be joined by the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Today's conversation is around education, various aspects and factors in education. That past conversation, well, the private schools basically are saying that they would like to be involved in the transition, 100% transition of students from primary to secondary. From that basic, it makes sense. You have facilities, make sure that you just transition the children from primary to secondary across board. Because you have very many students, over 200,000 students, close to 250,000 students, who sit KCPE in private primary schools. And then all of them are made to select public secondary schools that they'd like to join. And not all of them are going to fit there. So we find that private secondary schools are now taking up some of those students. But it's basically happening after the fact. There was something that Muthui had talked about, which is at the point when the students are choosing their schools, it is just, thinking, okay, this has been my performance so far. Maybe the kind of national school I'll go to is this one. The extra county school is this. The county school, the sub-county school I'd like to select is this and the other. But maybe that there's also a conversation of maybe should this be happening after an exam? Should you select the schools after the exam? After you get your results, then you know this is the result. Instead of just doing this whole job of county, county, you got 380, then you qualify for national, extra county or county. Select those three, and you know where you are already.
Why I mentioned at the beginning of the show that this was a useful discussion is because it has many moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and unless this discussion is had not just had, but with an open mind, because the private sector in this country are very senior partners in the education sector. Not just partners, senior partners. Without them, one actually wonders what would happen to the education of our children. One really has to wonder, because the government clearly fell short of whatever capacity it is supposed to have provided for these very same people. In fact, private schools exist in the numbers that keeps increasing because the government failed to actually meet the required standards for the provision of education for its citizens. Now, is the government ready to acknowledge this partnership and treat it as a partnership in the truest sense? Of course, with the nuances here and there. Because again, even with the so-called private institutions, they really differ. Yes, they're not in the same category. You know what comes to mind was an earlier time when you had what you call high-cost schools. Now, many of these are schools that had been purely European schools, purely meant for the colonialists. And the government took them over. Now, what it meant was that these schools also had an allocation that other schools didn't get, to the point where essentially they were subsidized. Now, as the population of this country increased, it became clear that this wasn't going to be possible. And that the majority of people who actually came to that school were people who were, as we say, just ordinary citizens.
Yep.
All right? They also had a very interesting tiered system of fee payment. Because depending on one's capacity, there are those who paid full school fees, okay, which is a lot of money by those standards. And then there are those who got bursaries. Just as with the time all that had to be revised, in the time we are in, the need for this discussion with a view to understanding the changes that need to be made, that one has to be had. Every so often, the need for change has to be accommodated. And right now, the need has been brought about by just the very large number of young people needing quality education. Yes.
I think a number of things need to happen, and it's very clear that the government needs help. Because we've seen things spiral out of control, and that's exactly what we are doing. That a term has begun, and we're going into almost the third week of the term, and there's still some students who do not have a place, and we have some schools that are packed to the rafters in terms of what they're able to take in when it comes to students in school. Secondly, this issue of capitation for what should be available to every child in the country clearly has been mismanaged. So that when parents and students hear private school, the immediate assumption is that it is something so expensive that I will not be able to afford. So let me go to a public school where the provision then is made. Very few have the understanding that this money should then be available across board. And perhaps this fuels the decisions that they are then making. But it is obvious that the government needs help. And while a new policy is being rolled out as we speak in the country, whether it is curriculum or whether it is this systemic infrastructure of education, not just the physical infrastructure, but the system of infrastructure and how the schools operate and how education as a system operates, as that is going through its changes, it is obvious that there are many things that need to be done. While those things are happening with an intense attention to what needs to be done, it is clear that the government needs help. The government needs help. And right now, who better to come in and to help in this than private schools right now? Because look at it as however you would like to. They've got something right. They're doing something right.
Yes.
And if they are the ones who are going to offer the help to the government, why not? Would you rather get help from an expert or somebody who has continued to do it in a way in which it has clearly shown is not working? So I think the time has come to put hands together, because at the end of the day, those who should be accessing education are the ones who are suffering.
Those that should be accessing are the ones who are suffering. That issue of capitation, I think there are questions yes to be asked. If indeed, when the Ministry of Education is allocating money for capitation to be sent to support the secondary transition and secondary education. If money is actually allocated per child, and they're looking at the data, the statistics of the students who sat KCPE and therefore the students who will be joining Form 1, knowing full well that not all the students who join Form 1 go into public schools, so not all students who join Form 1 are actually accompanied by the money that goes for capitation. So where does that money go?
It's a valid question, isn't it?
Yes, there's a question there that the Ministry of Education can answer. Yes, is the money disbursed? Is it reassigned to other functions? What happens to that?
Is it mismanaged?
Yep. Yeah, is it mismanaged in terms? And when it's mismanaged, so what does that mean? That the money has been sent to student so and so without it being acknowledged as receipt.
It is unfortunate that my mind goes there.
Head school, so and so.
Or is it because many people do not know that children, whether in public or private, should be able to access this money? So we are going to make it available for those in public institutions, and nobody's going to ask questions about what should be left over. So you can say mismanaged. Others would say put in pockets where it shouldn't go.
That would be captured. If such a blatant one would be captured by the Auditor General. Because, I mean, if you're saying that you've sent out X amount of money, there's an accounting mechanism. It is not sent to a student's account. It is sent to a school's account for X number of students. So those are questions that can be raised. If secondary school X received this money for X students, do we have those students?
Or maybe to ask the question, is it even budgeted for? Is capitation budgeted for school-going children? Because you can't tell me that they don't have these statistics. They do. But it is clear then capitation is budgeted for public institutions only.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be the case.
No, I think it should.
Remember this discussion, okay?
It should be for every child.
Yes.
Not every child in a public school.
No, it ought to be every child because well, where I'm coming from is this discussion that arises from the declaration by the ministry that no child shall be left behind.
And when they're saying no child should be left behind, it didn't say no child in public school, no child in private school,
Kenyan
child. Yeah.
Because the argument again here is even those parents whose children are in private schools pay tax.
They do.
Okay. So if it is the taxpayers' money that is being used for some of these issues or some of these considerations, then it is a valuable argument to ask, then why then are these parents? Because children don't pay taxes, they're parents who do. Why are they? The discussion, as I said, has many moving parts, but it has to be had. And it has to start from the point of view, as I said, that where the government acknowledges that they have a senior partner with them in this. Because the government behaves as though they're the only partner, and these are the people are given concession to accommodate. They're accommodated from time to time, and yet the role they play is not dissimilar to the one that the government plays when it comes to providing education.
You know, and this is why I am drawing my line. I am drawing my line from the fact that in every society there's a private sector.
There is.
And private sector is a matter of choice. All right. So when it comes to there's private sector providing security, it should be a matter of choice. Do I want to get extra security, and what company do I go to? But the basic security should be provided by the government through public funding. Same thing with education. Education is a basic right for every child, 0 to 18. Basic. That should be financed and should be financing public institutions. Okay? Now, at some point, because I am a citizen, I can make a choice. If I choose to go for services that are being offered by somebody else, and the government should be allowed to have other players coming in and playing in that field. If I then choose to, I see this particular private entity is offering this service and it's offering quality service, and it's been regulated and governed by the laws of Kenya through the supervision of the Education Ministry, I can choose to take my child there. But you see, I have opted out of what the government is already providing. If I make the choice to go to private, I'm opting out of an existing, well-established structure. Okay? And in that, I shouldn't be saying that because I've opted to go here, then I should also go with my money.
But you're making it seem that as though the public system has provided and there is space available and that there's quality being offered and that everything you need, you'll be able to get it.
Which is why
where this whole thing started from
Yes.
is that be it as it may, that the public infrastructure exists, that the spaces are not enough. That in terms of what should be up for offer for all the children in the country, it is not adequate. It's not as though somebody went to a public school and said, okay, there's space, there's quality, there's this, and they say, actually, I don't want it.
You know, as we speak today, NEMIS did its math. NEMIS allocated all the 1.2 students who start KCPE last year to a school. NEMIS did not get a point where it has a gap that says, oh, we have some 10,000 students who we were not able to place in any school. As we speak today, NEMIS has placed every child in this country who sat KCPE last year to a public school.
In the system.
In
is
the
that
system.
commensurate to the situation on the ground?
Now, the situation on the ground it could be different in terms of challenges of infrastructure and all.
That's the point.
And this is where the money should not be going to develop another infrastructure. The money should be going to develop that infrastructure that is missing.
And now we are saying
What
that
we should
at
be
this
saying
point,
is
it is
the
not
money that-
happening. In the meantime, there is
That
health
should
that is
happen.
being offered. In the meantime, it's not going
I
to
do
happen
not want
right
a
now.
meantime. Right now, as we speak, the money that is there should not be going to somebody else who's providing that service. It should be going to develop what is not there. This child who's been allocated X amount of money for secondary school should go to a secondary school. That money follows them there. It gives them the service. Not telling this child, okay, now, because you don't like what you're finding or because we're not able to provide, we're also allowing you to go to another school. This other school is not just going to take care of this capitation, it's also going to put a markup. You see? My point is, develop our infrastructure. The same thing that happens in Standard 1, Kibaki said, let all children go to school. Finance that and make sure that you're developing it to match the needs. Because as soon as we say that you can take some of that money to go and develop the other side, then more and more of that money, 1.2, we see only about 100,000, 150,000 are ending up in secondary schools. In 5 years' time, 1.2 will be in private schools. And we'll stop developing. We can't.
You do not know just how succinct and to the point your position is. Because even as you're speaking, my mind was traveling to the manner in which Kenyans believe they should advance their own economic enhancements. Huh? You will find very many people in the Ministry of Education owning schools, financed by the government.
Mm-hmm.
That is what will happen.
Yes.
They and their buddies will start schools knowing full well that
there's capitation. Money is coming.
And they'll divert it in that direction.
I have 100 students. I've grown my capacity to 1,000 students. All the money that's coming from public is coming into private. Meanwhile, public is not being developed.
To understand
this is what happened. That's how we ended up with the situation that we are in today.
Precisely.
Government stopped investing. Well, it wasn't supporting the other side, but government stopped investing.
Just consider the mayhem that one saw at some point and one sees every once in a while with NHIF. NHIF is supposed to cater for your health needs, whether it is in the public sector or in the private sector. Goodness gracious me. Private sector were the biggest culprits in this. Because NHIF is accepted, they do whatever paperwork is required and they send whatever paperwork is required forward for reimbursement, isn't it? This is a scam, and it doesn't happen every day, but every once in a while it's unearthed, and you hear of the amount of money that NHIF has actually lost.
Yep.
Now, that is something that would most certainly feature in the education sector, and it would be a terrible thing, because the very thing that we are saying would not happen. The people who need to benefit from this the most would actually not benefit from it. Eric's point I see with great clarity.
Ndu?
Yes.
Do you see?
Oh, I see your point. I just don't think that because the point is clear that right now, at this moment, because this thing we're talking about, it is not futuristic. We're talking about a problem that exists today. So in as much as you want to say that, yes, what should happen and where we should be aspirational in our wants and desires, today, there are children who don't have a place to go. Today, you asked me my point.
We cannot continue in the wrong premise.
No. It's not a wrong premise.
All children have a place to go.
It is
all
a
children
reality.
have been admitted to secondary schools.
You yourself admitted that the situation on the ground is different from what the system tells you.
No, it's in terms of.
So today,
it is
what
congested.
we are talking about is that in as much as there is an issue that needs to be solved and that we are going forward in development, we are saying that if right now this quality that we are talking about is not being provided, and we are saying, let's aspire to get there. Can we work together? Yes, we can. Are there things that we can do? Yes, we can. Is it possible to look at how these funds can go towards development? Yes, it is possible. Before that happens, is there a way that these two can work together to sort out the issues that are faced right now?
How does your position differ from Eric's?
Tell me.
That's why I said you're talking at cross purposes. You see, it's a similar issue, and you need to understand that the premise from which Eric is actually bringing forth his point, that is what you need to focus on, and then everything else now falls into place nicely. Just like the premise from which you are basing your argument. See, I'm agreeing with both of you. This is the whole point. And you're not really saying anything that different.
You're a fence sitter, City. 25 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break.
What do you think fences are for? If not sitting on.
Green on the outside, and what color on the inside?
Yellow.
We are live on KT and home on SpiceFM and online. Let's take this break, and then we come back. We'd like to hear from you as you continue the conversations. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
The FKF Premier League enters the round of 32 with exciting soccer action this week. On Thursday, Ulinzi Stars face FC Leopards. On Friday, Tusker FC play the Kakamega Homeboys. And on Saturday, Gor Mahia take on Bidco United. All matches are exclusive to BTV, Channel 172 on aerial decoder and 463 on satellite, and will be played at 3:15 p.m. Get connected to Star Times for only 999 shillings on aerial decoder or 2,699 shillings on satellite. Star Times, the official broadcaster of the FKF Premier League.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot...
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 16, highs of 21 and lows of 14. 16 and mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 20 and lows of 13. Partly sunny conditions at 22, highs of 24 and lows of 14 in Nakuru. And Eldoret is sunny at 22, highs of 23, lows of 13. 27 will be the high, and in Kisumu it's partly sunny at 22. 23 and partly sunny in Kakamega with highs of 28. It'll come down to lows of 15. 23 is the low with light rain in Mombasa, highs of 29. 29 is the high in Malindi. 23 and light rain at the moment. It's raining in Kampala at 20 with highs of 26 and lows of 18. Mostly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 30. 14 will be the high in a sunny Johannesburg at 8, coming down to lows of 4. Light rain at 25 in Lagos, highs of 29. And it's sunny in Kinshasa at 21, highs of 32 and lows of 21.
"24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
He's
full of character. Wit and sense of humor is sure to make you not get enough.
Ati ukienda mahali unapelekwa out sijui na kulanga lasagna na ujui kuisoma. Imeandikwa kwa menu, nipatie lasagna.
Join MC Jesse as he sits down with his guests for a thrilling, memorable, and insightful conversation. Watch Jesse Junction every Sunday from 4 p.m.
I told you guys about Mombasa Road today. It does not look good at all the way from the signature mall on Mombasa Road through to the Hilton Garden Inn. It's one lane, and the other half a lane that still exists is no-go zone. The ICD route is bumper to bumper in both directions today. It's a total mess. If you don't need to be on Mombasa Road, it might be a good idea not to do that. And even later in the day, it looks like it's going to be quite crazy. The construction is compounding issues significantly. Also, we are looking at an accident that happened on the Thika Superhighway today. Early on in the morning, there was a nasty accident right around the Githurai near the BRT station that is under construction, and traffic has built up as a result of that. So those are the reasons why we're seeing heavy traffic in that area. Langata Road is also busy as you're going towards the T-Mall roundabout, and we're still seeing some on Lunga Lunga. Industrial area looks quite tight as you get out at the Likoni interchange. The southern and eastern bypass is looking good, however. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 8:30.
Mornings
The conversation
done
continues right here in the Situation Room. We are live streaming the show online. We are live on SpiceFM. And we are also on KTN Home. We are discussing the education sector. So yes, there is a transition, 100% transition policy from primary to secondary. But there is also the government having allowed the entry of the private sector into the education sector and regulating that and allowing it to thrive. The debate that we're having is when it comes to transition to secondary schools, students only select schools in public institutions. They're not given any chance to select a school in private institutions. And then when they when they are admitted to secondary schools, you'll find that students and parents will then look and opt out of this to go into private facilities. But many haven't. There are many who haven't joined Form 1, and yet we have private secondary schools that have capacity. Now, how do you balance that? Capacity that is existing in the private sector, congestion that's existing in the public sector, awareness that is clearly lacking, but also balancing it in terms of how do you support it? Should this support to the private sector also extend to funding private sector in terms of the capitation that goes per child? If a child goes into a private school, should that capitation follow them to the private school? That, I guess, is the crux of the conversation. Let's hear from Ali in Mombasa. Ali, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you, Eric, Lou, and
Good morning.
I think it's a very good conversation today, and it's one of the backbone of any nation. It's always being said, a healthy nation is a wise nation. But unfortunately, the healthiness in education system does not make us wise. Because there's one thing that we have to discuss about, that every student in the education sector has to have a UPI number. I don't know UPI number. If the government is not going to involve the private sector in developing the education, right from the primary to the university, then there is something amiss over there. Because if these students are coming from the public school and they end up in private school, meaning the private sector have played their part, how will this government do by recognizing the private sector? One, it can be infrastructure development. Two, it can be teachers, like allocating teachers to those schools. Three, it can be putting the textbooks or whatever to the school fees. Four, do they have a research that says this number of students from the public school in primary have gone to the private sector? What are we going to do to show our appreciation to the private sector have developed infrastructure properly for a conducive environment as students to become a good citizen and to develop the country itself in form of getting the right career, being an engineer or a doctor or whatever, in terms of allocating that money. And the question comes from the Ministry of Education when they try to make a budget for let's say 2021 to 2022. Do they consider the private sector education players as important as they are?
What do you think, Ali? Should they?
I think they should. Because the same people that we are talking about are the same people who pay taxes for this government to run. They are the same people who have given vote for the executive to run this country. So it is not only the parents of the public school in the primary that have voted and are paying taxes. Even those who have developed private schools to subsidize government effort in giving education, they are supposed to be considered and be looked into in a wider aspect.
Okay.
I think that is my contribution. I don't know if I can go further, it will destroy it.
Asante, Ali. Asante. Point is home. Thank you very much. What do you think? So we are talking about government support to the private sector. Basically, that's what we're saying. So in primary school, there is capitation. It's free primary education in the country. Money goes to the children in public schools. It does not go to children in private schools at primary level. Why then should we bring in the introduction of money per capitation per child going to private schools to children in private schools in secondary?
Would you consider for a single second that, remember the argument that I brought forth with regards to the stratification that you actually see in the so-called private sector?
Yeah.
And that not all private sector schools are high-cost schools. Should there not be a consideration, perhaps, for a category of private school that clearly needs assistance? I mean, it's a private school, yes, but it functions under very diminished circumstances.
Let me attempt to answer this.
Yes.
One of the reasons why you'll see the proliferation of such institutions at the local level is because of failure by government to provide that very crucial service in that neighborhood.
Yes.
So government should basically build a school. If government built a school and a good school in that local neighborhood, then that school, which is of even a poorer quality than the nearest public school, would not exist.
Now, you see, when Du's argument about the here and now comes in, is from that very point. You see, the government ought to build a school, but they haven't built a school.
Yeah.
But the school has been put up by the community. It's a ramshackle of a school, but nonetheless, it is a school.
Yeah.
Okay? Now,
so government then comes to improve the infrastructure of that school.
Yes.
So if government has money to start improving infrastructure, it then has money to start building a school.
Actually, the understanding of that very concept as was seen in the uplifting of Harambee schools, or as I said, church-supported schools, was that, yes, the community has done their bit and the government is now doing their bit. Now, the here and now, unfortunately, is what is represented in what I'm trying to say. What you are saying is aspirational and it's ideal, but maybe I should ask the question, is the government willing to put in money to actually build these schools where they're needed?
Should the government have a choice? For as long as a government is in existence, some things, it's a basic right.
But this
no
isn't-
choice, no ifs,
Yes,
buts.
but I'm saying, I
It's
don't
not
even
that
see-
every child in
I
Kenya,
It is very
that
good.
every
and
child
that
in
is
Kenya
the
could
position.
go to school.
Look,
No.
that is the case. That is the position that government has a responsibility, duty bound,
yes,
to get these things done. We understand that. And it is not only in education that you will see that the responsibility for what they're supposed to do has not actually been carried out. Health, other things. It is across board. Now, we are saying, right, as we speak, there's an education policy that has been discussed for the last 7 months and is being rolled out over the next 5 years. Today, as we are talking, these things that we are talking about, bringing the quality of education closer to your vicinity so that we stop this thing of children going to boarding school, these are discussions that are happening now. Are you going to see
Yes.
the physical manifestation of those things happening on September 17th?
If a government
No,
intended to.
You are not.
This time last year, there were no 17 new health facilities in Nairobi. Today, they are there.
Yes.
If a government wants
and,
to,
and
it
before
should
those
do it.
17
Let's go to the phone
facilities were
lines.
built, there were other things that people were doing
Now,
to be
can
able
you
to
imagine if
access
we say
healthcare.
that let's go now and start supporting those other smaller healthcare facilities instead of building?
Phone
Let's go to
line.
the phone lines.
Phone line.
Monica in Ndakaine, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good.
All right, let's hear you.
I am in the private sector in education. And I support 100% transition for the sake of the Kenyan child. Because the Kenyan child deserves to go to school. Whether they go to private or they go to public, they should go to school. No child should get lost somewhere in between. But in this discussion, I feel that the government is also trying kind of to kill the private sector. Because when they say the capitation now, the children all congest in public schools, we end up with facilities that are unused. We have classrooms that are unused. We have dormitories that are unused, suffering from low population. We are paying teachers. The government doesn't pay any teachers. We pay teachers, and we pay teachers, and we pay other workers from the funds that we collect when we charge for the fees.
Yep.
And even when you go to the public sector and you take your child, it doesn't mean the capitation caters for everything. The parent also top up. Ask those parents who are taking children to Form 1. They were paying quite a lot because the capitation is not adequate.
Yep.
So if the government could at least give even bursaries or something, that capitation, half of it, to the parent who wants to go to a private school, and then they top up, that child is a Kenyan child. You remember at one time they were paying KCSE and KCP only for public schools. But later on now, they considered paying KCSE and KCP for all the
For all
Kenyan
children. Yep.
And that is good now. So it should also be considered. And they put up some of the, they put up their own mechanisms of following up that money
Okay.
so that they are able to know that this money is being put into good use. And the parent who has opted to go to private school also is benefiting.
Thank you for your points, Monica. Have a lovely
Thank
day.
you so much. Have
Asante.
a lovely day too.
Alan in Maseno, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
I'm enjoying the discussion. And what I would like to put across is if our government is going to fund private schools, and the same government has so many teachers that are not employed by the TSC, the same teachers I know are teaching in the private schools because they have not been employed by TSC, but they are waiting for a chance to join TSC
Yep.
from the private school.
Yep.
And somewhere you are saying if the government will fund private school, then everyone in government will open a private school. Because that is the nature of our country.
Yeah.
They will divert all the funds. What the government should do at this point is to improve the infrastructure of public schools. Because the lady has said there are dormitories that are unoccupied,
Yep.
there are classrooms that are empty, private schools are private businesses that are in competition. What will the government do to them? Pay for them teachers? and they are in private business. And also said, I heard you people say, it is a choice someone makes. Education is a right. Private education is a choice.
Asante.
That's all.
Thank you very much, Alan. Mwalimu Irongo in Kisii.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Habari Ndu and City.
Salama kaka, how are you today?
I'm fine, sir.
That is good.
I'd like to pick up from what Alan has said regarding the employment of teachers. In fact, more than 95% of the teachers working in the private schools are actually waiting for a chance to be absorbed in public schools by the Teacher Service Commission. The rate of staff turnover in the private schools is very high because of the conditions under which they work. I have been in the private sector myself working as a teacher, and I can tell you it is not one of the things you may wish to undergo, but we do it because there is actually no other choice until such a time that you are absorbed by the Teacher Service Commission.
Yeah.
I know that there are schools, some of which are performing very poorly, private schools that is, because some of the teachers are not trained. We still have them there. Some are retired and tired, therefore, and they don't stay long. I don't think we should invest in such schools because private schools themselves. I wonder that now those who are pushing for capitation, these are some of the things they will not tell us. How do they treat teachers? How many schools are established and we know they will exist for some time because some of them keep dying every day. Secondly, Eric, you see, they don't have functional boards of management. And this is because, I don't know whether I'm online.
Yes, you are.
Oh, yes. They don't have functional boards of management because what happens is that somebody's property, and they obviously bring parents around and they choose, even if the parents elect the members of the board, that board does not really have anything to say. The school is run by the proprietor
It's the owners
and
of the school.
the head teacher. Yes, the owner of the school and the head teacher who takes instructions directly from the director of that school.
Thank you.
So even if that money comes, we shall not. And please, finally, I have a problem with us beginning to take our money to build more to build more private schools as opposed to improving public schools, which most of our population will reach.
Yeah.
That's my contribution this morning.
Asante sana Mwalimu Irongo. Nicholas.
Hey, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Just first of all to pick from where the Mwalimu has left. Maybe I'm actually a player in the private sector.
Okay.
And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that the private sector is providing a solution or is filling the void where the government is not able to. When we ask for the capitation, we are not asking basically for funding. We are saying, like for example, the hotel industry. The government has supported them by sending business to them. Like you find conferences being held in hotels.
Yeah.
That is public money going to the private sector.
Yeah.
We have the government now wanting to do BRTs, the transport. It has the railway, but we are still using the matatu. So what we are saying is that we coexist. We provide a service that is actually required and there is a need for Kenyans. And all we are saying is that parent, if he chooses to take their child to a private school, the capitation should follow the child. Because at the moment, we have children in NEMIS, for example. We are required to record all the children in NEMIS.
Yes.
Yes. And if you look at, for example, in my school, the children in my school are actually captured in NEMIS in another public school. And their capitation is currently being sent to public school. And as Malimu said, we do not mistreat our teachers. We hire teachers, even from public schools, who are paid less than 10,000 and the secondary school. And they get the capitation. They get the capitation for the children in their school and also for the children in our school. So that money is already going to the school.
So there's some corruption that's happening. This is in terms of, accounting for this money.
Exactly. When we go to the meeting,
I think, Nicholas, let's address the issue of that corruption and raising the issue of corruption from, the Auditor General, from the relevant agencies that should follow. If there is budgetary allocation for 1.2 million children who sat KCPE last year, is that money going to every child in the secondary school, and can we actually see the child? There is that question there. However,
we're not even interested in that.
I want to ask you, how does capitation happen in primary school?
The same story. The primary school is given the money depending on the number of children that are in NEMIS.
Right.
Yes. So you find that, for example, you find that we have the number of children who are in NEMIS. That is the number that they will be given the capitation. But the issue is, actually, where the issue is becoming tricky in the secondary school is because of the choices now. When the children are transiting from the public school to private to secondary school, you find that as they transit, all the children have been selected into public school as we speak, and that means all the children currently in secondary school have been given capitation in public school.
Okay.
But now, some of the children are in private school.
Nicholas, I think there's also this misconception, and maybe you can correct me here, is that we keep saying that capitation is going to the school. But capitation is actually the provision for this child to access education. That's what we are talking about. This is not capitation going to the school to build infrastructure or to buy books. It is going so that this child can access education. That's what capitation is for.
You're actually helping Eric a lot, because Eric is talking about funding a private school. They're not funding the private school. What we are saying is that if my fees, for example, is 50,000, and the capitation for that child
is 22.5,
is 22.5, we are saying the parent should pay my school the balance.
Yes. And this can be made available for those who are going to private school as well.
So that is it. That is all we are saying. So that
Nicholas
even the parent also gets the reprieve.
Right.
Because they're also taxpayers.
Let me ask the question.
Yes, Eric.
So capitation is to support the child.
Yes.
What does it pay for?
It goes to even in the public school, it goes to the specific budget line.
Which is?
It goes to pay for the electricity. I think it goes to pay for the support staff. I think it goes for the book.
Costs.
Yes, that are related to education.
Yes.
And actually, in our previous discussion with the Ministry of Education, and even with the Parliament, their instruction was that even if we were to give you the capitation, we will not allow you to build schools with it. So we will only ensure that capitation goes towards the improving the learning facilities, the books for the child, the lab equipment, for example, the lab reagents, and all the things that are child required for the purpose of education. But we are told we will not even allow you to either build a classroom using the capitation money.
You cannot develop, but you're being subsidized in terms of your operation. Your OPEX is the one that is being subsidized.
Actually, talk about subsidizing the parent also, but not just the school.
All right.
Because the parent will no longer pay. Yeah. Because the parent will no longer pay the 50,000 that maybe I was going to charge.
So, but here's the question then.
Yes.
The whole thinking behind it is so that we ensure that every child is able to access education. We're looking at what does it cost to provide this education.
Yes.
And the costs, those basic costs, the power, the support staff, all those are the ones that you're saying that the government is footing.
Yes.
And then the government has an extra budget line called development and infrastructure development.
Yes.
Now, this footing of the operational costs, if a government is actually developing the infrastructure, it will be able to accommodate the children and continue financing the operational costs. If the government does not do this, and it subsidizes the private sector to provide this service called education, we're basically saying that the government is still shifting its focus from its core mandate, which is provide education to all, and saying now we're starting to subsidize private entities. So you, Nicholas, you'll determine, I want to charge 50,000
you're not
shillings.
Subsidizing private
which is,
entities. You're making sure that those who are in private schools as children of the Republic can access education.
Exactly. That is all we are saying.
By subsidizing
the
private sector.
You will still take your CDF to your public school. You will still take they have a lot of funding. They have about 3 or 4 fundings that are currently developing infrastructure in public schools. Those ones will continue. We are not even asking for even a cent of that. You understand?
Not yet, yes.
So they'll continue building the classrooms. They'll continue building the dormitories in public schools. Like right now, we are preparing actually for the double intake in 2023. And I can tell you for free, I doubt even the government is even ready for that. For the massive congestion that will likely happen. We have congestion at the moment because most of the children have been placed in public school. As we are running under capacity, I think we are running about 20 or 30, 40% of that of the capacity. Because all the children were placed in public school. But we are saying in 2023, I don't want to say whether the government likes it or not, they'll have to talk to us. Because in 2023,
you will be the one with the infrastructure.
We have the current class 8. I mean, the class 8 who are currently in class 6. No, 7.
In 7.
Who will be transitioning to Form 1.
Yeah. And then you have class 6.
And then we will have the class 6 will be transitioning to the junior secondary school.
Right.
And I can tell you for free, even if the government now insists that they will never find us or they'll never talk to us, somehow they'll have to. Because
it doesn't appear that in the next 11 months that the government would have done all these things that Eric is hoping they would have done.
That is
even if they did, maybe they can manage one class. Maybe the class 8. But I doubt if we add the grade 6, they're now transitioning to grade 7. I doubt they will be able to manage that. But that is beside the point. What we are saying, Eric, is that we need to give that support to the child. We are not talking about the parent. Then we add now the parent who is also paying the taxes.
But I don't think Eric disagreed with that perspective.
It's a very good line that you've used, Nicholas. Let's focus on the child.
Yes, I don't think Eric disagrees with you.
And I'm calling you sly. But Nicholas, thank you very much for your call.
We can have this conversation offline.
Yes, we can. Asante sana for your call, Nicholas. And thank you very much to your audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since the top of the hour. The education conversation continues. In the next hour, we want to talk about selection of places in university and colleges. So what happens? The Kenya what for circulation? KUSSIPS. They will be here with us from 9 o'clock. Just make sure that you tune into that conversation as well. If you'd like to get any of the highlights of this show, you can follow us on social media, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And also you can text the word TSR to 22840. TSR 22840. You get all the highlights. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter.
Okay, it's 1.5 minutes to the top of the hour. Ndu.
Yes?
Your last words on this.
Look, I think in a present situation, help is needed. And if you look at whether you want to look, however you want to look at PPPs come in to solve a problem at the moment whereby you're not able to work on it on your own. And it is clear that in this moment, I really do believe that there are quite a number of parents who would take their children to a public school if they were being able to, if they could be offered the kind of quality that the system promises, quote unquote, within an area that an education policy also promotes and provides, or promises at the very least. But as that is being worked on today, there are issues. And I am saying there is no reason why that we cannot work together here, especially if we're looking at capitation for a child to go to school. Let it be made possible. Partnerships come together because there is a vacuum that has been created somewhere. Now, while you're trying to get your ducks in a row, which is probably somewhere in the near future, allow these partnerships to take place now.
My last words on this, Ndu. Practical example, Nairobi Metropolitan Services did not put money in the private sector saying, we have a COVID, whatever. They said we are going to put up infrastructure to improve our health services.
And how did they do it? They brought in somebody who was able to do it because the entity before that was not able to sort it out. So they brought in somebody to sort out the issue.
Public funds have built public institutions. It is not so and so who's running a clinic.
It can be done.
It can
so
be
why
done.
Was it not done all the time?
Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The One Kenya Alliance leaders are displeased with President Uhuru Kenyatta's preference for ODM leader Raila Odinga to take over the presidential candidature. This comes after the leaders held a meeting with Uhuru and Raila in Mombasa earlier this week, led by ANC's Musalia Mudavadi and his allies. They've insisted that Mudavadi must run for presidency come next year. Now Mudavadi is urging leaders to stop twisting information about the State House meeting in their favor.
Wanasiasa wanapenda kupindua maneno ati watu wameenda huko wamekubaliana kitu fulani wawachane na huo mtindo. Mimi ningependa kusema msifurahishwe na hiyo picha ambayo ilikuwa pale. That was an embarrassment. Hiyo ilikuwa kuonyesha kwamba Waluya hatuko pamoja na kuna mtu anajaribu kuleta ile dhana kwamba Waluya hawako pamoja na huyo mtu anaitwa Raila Amolo.
This is even as ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday hinted at what was discussed at the State House meeting.
Tumeongea na Uhuru, lakini sitaki kusema hapa, hiyo ni siri. Lakini Uhuru amejaribu zaidi. Sana yeye mwenyewe amesema ati kuna pale ambayo inavuja.
The High Court has given LSK President Nelson Havi and CEO Muthui 7 days to respond to a case challenging leadership at the lobby. The wrangles between the two saw Havi close LSK offices earlier this week, forcing the police to intervene. The leadership wrangles continue to deepen after Havi announced the retention of a new candidate to succeed current Secretary and CEO Muthui. Havi then appointed Josephat Mutisia as the council CEO. The society had invited applicants for the position on June 29th, and by the end of the application period on July 14th, 3 people had applied. The two Embu brothers who allegedly died in the hands of police officers will today be laid to rest at their parents' home. The family will first hold a service for the two at Kianjakoma Primary School from 11 a.m. According to the family, the two will be buried in one grave due to the relationship they shared. Here's the family spokesperson, Susan Digwe.
Tulionelea vizuri masanduku yawe mawili, lakini tutawapumzisha kwa shimo moja kwa sababu walienda pamoja, kwa sababu vijana walikuwa wamependana sana, hawakuwa wanaachana, na ndio tumesema tu wakae mahali pamoja.
The family lawyer Njuguna Njoroge also says they'll not rest until justice is served.
We will follow this issue until to the logical conclusion. We want to say that it is about time that the police in this country become the protectors of the people and not the perpetrators of crime.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're looking at heavy traffic on Langata Road heading towards the roundabout at Timo. Also some coming out of Westlands, and we're looking at some on Mombasa Road, right around the Maradaima. Makadara also on Jogo Road heading into the CBD. All right, we're going to also look into Westlands coming into the CBD as well. Quite heavy in that area. Kamkunji roundabout coming from Landis Road into the CBD. So we're looking at a little bit here and there. Gong Road, Thika Road, Mombasa Road. The ones to watch this morning. Let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5
the only way.
9. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the final hour this lovely Friday morning, 13th day of August, 2021. Let's begin with the day's proverb, City.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole.
Those Nilots are funny. It's an Nilotic proverb.
It is.
Okay.
They are funny.
They are funny people. Hey. Our guest this hour is Dr. Agnes Mercy Wahome. She's from KUSIPS. We've been calling it KUSIPS all morning. Are we right? Is it how you call it, or you do call it KUPS?
We call it KUPS.
There you stop. Where? KUPS.
KUPS.
Oops.
Well, the full name is quite a mouthful.
All right.
Yeah, Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service.
United. Limited.
Yeah.
Limited. Authority.
Yes.
Yes. So some say KUSIPS, KUSPS.
Yeah.
Whichever pleases you.
Whichever floats the boat.
Yes.
The Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a history and the background of this institution.
KUPS started off as a JAB. You remember the times of JAB?
The Joint
Admissions Board.
Yeah.
That was just a committee of vice chancellors who would come together, hosted at the University of Nairobi, and do the placement of students. And that time we just had very few universities. Actually, Nairobi, KU was part of Nairobi.
University of Nairobi, yes.
Exactly. So when we got more university, now there was need to come together and see how to share these students. So we got the Joint Admissions Board. And this continued doing, they would only come together at that point. Once they, it was running like a secretariat. But after we got the new constitution, one of the new areas that came in that was that we needed a placement service to coordinate the placement of students into the different universities that had now come in.
Mm-hmm.
And we were already having the private universities that needed to also come on board, to enhance partnership, the public-private partnership, even in the role of education. So KUPS was then established under the Universities Act of 2012. But it only took off or was able to get off from JAB to be established fully in 2014. So 2014, the team that was mainly working at the JAB, the Secretariat, moved to establish COOPS. And we got the first CEO. This was Mr. John Muraguri, who worked at JAB, starting COOPS with a few staff members.
Okay. And whose mandate, sole or combined, is to do what?
Well, the main mandate is to coordinate placement of students, government-sponsored students, into universities and colleges. And this was, exactly what JAB was doing. But at that point, JAB was not coordinating the placement into colleges. It was just the universities. But now the mandate of COOPS was very clear. And again, we are talking of government-sponsored students. Where government puts in money, somebody has to do the coordination. We also do career guidance for students in secondary schools because the government understands that it's important to guide students into the different careers. You just don't place. There's need to prepare them. And then with all this placement that happens and career guidance, we have a mandate to advise government because we are able to collect all this data. We are able to get who provides what. So it's our mandate to ensure that this information is out to the public, and then guide or provide guidance to the Ministry of Education to be able to look at issues of policies, enhanced policies. Yeah.
As we were having a conversation about this, and we said, let's actually bring in, I'm used to saying CUSIPs. Just allow me to keep saying that. CUSIPs, COOPS, CUSIPs, into the conversation. It stemmed from looking at what we saw happening in terms of university placement and choice of courses, and then the subject clusters. And so we asked ourselves, we are basically talking about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old children and asking them to make a choice that will determine what they end up becoming in their life. So what kind of information do they have, at their disposal? Are they able to understand if somebody is in school and you're in Form 2 and you're asking, what would you like to do? I want to be a doctor. Many of them, as we see in Standard 8, they have all these big names. I want to be a cardiologist surgeon. And then they get into Form 2, you find that changing again. So by Form 4, by Form 3, are they completely aware of what they'd like to do? Are they aware of their own capabilities or even inherent talent for them to be able to choose? And is that done very well? And that's why we said, let's actually bring the people who deal with this into the studio. So let me ask you the first question. You said there's a lot of career guidance that you do to the students. Do you do this in all schools countrywide?
Or how do you do it?
Okay. We do career guidance in different ways. One, we focus on the students, we focus on the parents, we focus on the teachers. Before I get into how we do it, allow me to just discuss what you said. When somebody is in Form 2, there's what they think. In Form 4, there's what they think. But career guidance should start very early. And that's where the role of the parent comes in, or the guardian. When a child is growing, as young as 5 years, you're able to, if you're an observant parent or a serious parent, you should be able to pick what this child enjoys doing. There are those who are very talkative, and you already see a journalist in them. There are those who like breaking up things, dismantling and putting things together. You can already start picking, personalities or traits of a child who enjoys working with their hands and therefore would be good in the area of engineering, So if you're a serious parent, when you get into parenting, it's not just about feeding and getting the child to grow physically. It's being able to observe and see what does this child enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And then you have the discussion as they grow. And you see children at a certain age, by the time they're in 8 years, 10 years, they start acting out certain roles. You'll see that one who acts as a nurse in the house.
Right.
A teacher, the one who will come and really almost repeat everything the teacher was saying, carry chalk from school. You can already pick what their interests are. And then you engage in that kind of conversation. What would you like to be when you grow up? And they start saying, a policeman, because they saw the one managing traffic on the road. So it has to be something that you build upon as they go along. So by the time they're in standard 7, 8, you're already now shaping their thinking in terms of what you're seeing them enjoy doing and what they are saying they would like to be, and then the subjects that they are taking in school. So by the time they get to Form 2, Form 1 and 2, they start picking subjects. So if a child says, I would love to be a nurse, you have to ensure that biology is one of the subjects that they pick. But we find in most cases, parents have no idea when these students are picking their subjects. If I asked you, were your parents involved in picking your subjects? Did they even know you were choosing certain subjects?
My dad did, and also probably because of the kind of school that I went to. But I mean, my parents were involved because I guess a different kind of parent. But I understand what you're saying, that the majority are not really, because you're involved in the business of life, maybe not really paying attention to what they may or may not be interested in.
Exactly.
But I know specifically my dad was very interested in where I was, and a lot of what I selected thereafter, even until way beyond in my career, knowing that this child will be able to do 1, 2, 3.
It's actually easier for a child who is in a day school to have parental involvement. In a boarding school, it's
quite difficult. My mother wasn't involved. Well, my mother knew, because I knew what I'd wanted to do. What I'm doing now is what I wanted to do.
Great.
But then in terms of now the cluster of subjects and all, and what school to go to, she wasn't involved because she wasn't aware that the choices available.
Exactly.
I wasn't fully aware of all the choices available in terms of where can I then go and study media studies. I wasn't aware. So I was just selecting things.
And that's where now the gaps come in, because how serious does the school take this activity? There are some schools, the boarding schools, when their students are doing the subject selection, they ask the parents to come in. And they have that meeting with the parents, and we encourage them to do that. Get the parents involved, let them understand that this is a life,
How do you do it?
So we engage with the schools directly, the secondary schools, and we have a program for Form 1 and 2s and a different program for Form 3s and 4s.
And it's in all the schools in the country?
Now we have 10,000 schools in the country.
Yes, we do.
So we are not able to physically get to every school. So we work through the Ministry of Education, the Director, Secondary Education. So when we have activities, we engage with them. We've had training for teachers, and the good side of COVID is that we've been able now to use technology. We are having online training for teachers.
What do you train the teachers in?
On how to guide the students in subject selection and course selection, and how to engage with the parents.
All right. How do you train teachers to guide students in subject selection? Is it with a view to the interests that they may have? Is it with a view to
their strengths in subjects?
Or is it with a view to the reality of the courses that they may prefer and how it would relate to the job market, etc., etc.?
Okay. The first thing is, what does the student want? What are the qualities of the student? Appreciating and respecting every student as an individual. first working with them to help them identify what are their interests, what are their talents, and what are their strengths in certain subjects. An example, you may have a student who is not very smart in mathematics, right? But this student is very good in sports. So how do you get this student to first appreciate their talents? Because unfortunately, if this is not guided, that student who is not good in subjects is really put down, and they're only useful to the school when it comes to
competition. Sports competition.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Yes. But linking their talent with a career and looking at them that, you can actually consider a career in sports as a trainer, a gym instructor. And if you're good in sciences, we have sports science, even at the university level. So being able to get the teacher to first appreciate and respect this child, and also the parent to do the same. So the teachers have a responsibility to also reach out to the parents to do this. So once I keep telling the teachers, these students are not like matchsticks, in a box where they have to be all the same level, Take time to work with individual students. And of course, there are challenges in the public schools where you find a class. I went to one of the schools and I found there were 500 candidates.
Wow.
Yeah. But the school is still doing very well, Miranda High School.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you respect and take every child's strengths and capacities and talents, you can be able to help them towards a certain career.
I'm interested to know where all of this plays out in some schools. So do you have government, representation at the school level? Excuse me, for example, or do you have representation at the school level where where you have the children's department, for example, you have an officer in counties. And you walk into a high school, for example, or a university, and you'll find that there is a CUSP's representative, for example. How does this play out? That can I go to somebody and get this, kind of like how we had the career office on campus?
Yes. Now, we work with every school. Every school has a career guide, and they call them guidance
counselor.
Yes. So we work with those. We've trained those, from various schools in the country. So we empower the career guidance schools, counselors in schools. We've now also worked with the ones in colleges and the universities, the career officers, because we appreciate that though we are starting in schools, they still need to be followed up in universities and colleges, because they still get there and they feel, I'm not sure I got into the right course, I need to change.
Yep.
So we work with them so that they are able to guide the students to change the course even while they are in the university.
Dr. I have a problem here. I understand the training of the guidance counselor teacher, but there tend to be one teacher. One. With that population of students. And I'm thinking of the challenge that this well-trained person will have in carrying out their mandate so that the children actually benefit from this knowledge that they have.
Yes.
Because that guidance counselor's teacher is the same person to whom, whenever there are social issues in the school, go to. And those tend to take precedence.
Yes.
The only time careers and choices come in is when exams are around the corner. Have you had this discussion with the Kenya, the curriculum development?
Now we have, and it's very true, when you look at even the current curriculum, it's so packed. So we tend to be more reactive than, when there's
than proactive.
Than proactive. Yeah, so that's a challenge we've seen. when we say now it's time for students to start making choices on their subject selection in Form 2, now that's when you find there's action and everybody writing to COOPs, come and help, come and say, we've trained you people, we expect you to be able to move this on your own, but everybody says, well, come and support. And we've seen the need to expand our reach. We have officers in Huduma centers in the country. We started off with 11, using mainly the old administrative boundaries of provinces. So in the old provinces, we have an officer in every Huduma in the province. We are now getting more because we are realizing we really need to reach out to every part of this country. But we cannot have an officer for every school. That's why we are empowering the teachers as trainers. So now we've trained teachers as trainers so that they're able to train other teachers. Then we are working very closely with the KESHA, Kenya Secondary Schools Heads Association. And what I like with them is that they have the student leaders. It's now that we have COVID, but in the past they have had annual conferences for student leaders. So all the head boys and head girls in the country are brought together, and we really take them through the whole process of career guidance. It's quite complex. It's
How do you measure progress through the year? Because you've just said by the time they get to Form 2 is when people start scrambling about, okay, what am I going to select for my courses? So you wouldn't really know the situation until something like that were to happen. So isn't there need for then a continuous assessment, as it were, interestingly enough, to see then these teachers that bear double responsibility? How much impact then do they have on the student population? Are they advising? Do we have students making the move to go to these teachers and say, okay, well, could you advise me then what I should be able to select for the career that I want to eventually pursue, or the course that I want to pursue in university? What should I be studying now? How are you able to assess, the impact that this then trained teacher has right at the school level?
Yeah. That's it's interesting. I love the question, but when we are thinking about looking at how old we are, like I said,
as an institution,
we are still growing. We are still growing, and we are looking at we prioritized. What is the burning thing? Every year we have to first place. Before we even think about anything else. Every class that does exams, we have to place. That becomes our, primary thing, and we ensure that we have to do it in the most fair way, and we respect the student's choice. Yeah. Secondly, now comes in the career guidance. We are looking at, and we just started off the research department. I actually went in to set up the research department in 2018. And those are some of the things I was looking at. How do we evaluate and measure the impact of what we are doing? To what extent are we saying that we are fair? To what extent are we saying that the students are really empowered to make their career choices and they're actually getting into the right choices? So that's a department I started, and we started by first looking at data. Once we place the students, we look at the number of students who come to do their transfers. Are they and the reasons for the transfer? Are they transferring because they felt they did not end up in the right career? Or are they transferring because they have financial challenges or medical challenges? So for me, I want to see the issue of, this is not what I thought the course was, being the lowest on the list of reasons for transfer. Exactly. I also want to see more students, because we allow students to make their choices while in school. and after they have after the results are out, what we call the center application and revision.
Right.
I want to see more students making their choices while in school, even before they sit for the exams. Because the more we have those, it means these children or students are well guided, and the course they are picking is because of what is not so much because of the results, the A's and the B's they got, but it's because that is what they want to do.
And they're informed.
And they're well informed. Yeah. And when I look at the placement, we'll be releasing the placement results next week. The CS will be releasing this on Tuesday. And when I look at the students that we placed that made their choices while in school, 85% got what they wanted right there.
Okay.
So this student is it tells me that the student is well guided in terms of the course they want to do and also understanding their abilities. That I may not be an A student. I'll probably get a C, and with a C, I'll end up in a diploma course, and I want to take a diploma in probably civil engineering, because I cannot get the A to get me to university to do civil engineering. I've seen we have 6,000 students who have C+ and above who have decided they do not want to go to the university. They want to take diploma courses. That tells you that person is very clear. If I'm not at this level, this is where I am, and I'm pursuing my career, not following what my grades can get me. Yeah.
That's very interesting. We look at more of those statistics because I think they, like you say, they reveal a lot about the understanding that the students have, even and their parents and guardians and teachers, of their capabilities and their interests versus what is available. The other question will be whether they are actually understanding what the market needs. Right? So let's talk about that when we take after this break. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's 9:30. We are speaking with Dr. Agnes Mercy Wahome. She is the CEO of the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. KUSPS, whatever floats your boat. We'll be back shortly.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 2 hash to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date, the hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The FKF Premier League enters the round of 32 with exciting soccer action this week. On Thursday, Ulinzi Stars face FC Leopards. On Friday, Tusker FC play the Kakamega Homeboys. And on Saturday, Gor Mahia take on Bidco United. All matches are exclusive to BTV, Channel 172 on aerial decoder and 463 on satellite, and will be played at 3:15 p.m. Get connected to Star Times for only 999 shillings on aerial decoder or 2,699 shillings on satellite. Star Times, the official broadcaster of the FKF Premier League.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and
Still a cloudy
nostalgic
morning in Nairobi at
ballads.
17. We'll see lows of 14 today and highs of 21. Mostly cloudy at 16 in Nyeri, highs of 20. 24 will be the high in Nakuru. It's partly sunny at 23. At 23, sunny conditions in Eldoret as well. That'll be the high for today. 27 will be the high in a partly sunny Kisumu, currently at 24. It's also 24 and sunny in Kakamega, going to highs of 28. 29 will be the high in a rainy Mombasa this morning at 26. We're also looking at rainy conditions through Malindi at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 24. 18 will be the low in Kampala. It's raining at 21, a rise to highs of 26. Looking at Dar es Salaam, it's partly sunny at 24, highs of 30 and lows of 22. 10 degrees and sunny conditions in Johannesburg, highs of 14 and lows of 4. At 25, Lagos is mostly cloudy, highs of 29. 32 will be the high in Kinshasa, that's sunny at 21. It's raining in Beijing at 28. That'll be the high for today, coming down to lows of 21 as they get into early afternoon. Sunny conditions in Paris at 17, highs of 28. 23 will be the high in a sunny London at 15. And clear conditions rule New York skies very early on Friday morning, coming into the day. Temperatures rise to 34 and lows of 25.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, Mombasa Road traffic today is terrible, and this is inbound to the city. It does not look good, outbound rather, coming from the Signature Mall all the way through. We're looking at that section of the road that's being constructed between the Weybridge and the SGR, and there's a gridlock this morning, moving very, very slowly. We have to watch out for this, likely going to continue for most parts of the day as long as that construction continues. We're looking at heavy traffic also in industrial area, getting out into the CBD. Coming off Jogo Road is not too bad as you get to the City Stadium roundabout, but then you get to Landis Road at the Kamkunji roundabout and things are going to slow down considerably. Coming out of Westlands as well, outbound doesn't look too bad right now. Thika Road also performing very well today. It's a good thing for a Friday. The visibility is extremely poor in some areas. Ngong Road, going out towards Westlands, Kikuyu, and out west. So please be careful. Fog lights up. You're going to need them for most parts of the morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE should you need to. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the Situation Room this morning, Siti Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and our guest, Dr. Agnes Mercy Wahome, CEO of the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. That 85% statistic that you gave us, Dr. Wahome, you said, so you have two windows for students to select their courses and their preferred institutions of higher learning. This is before the exam and then after the results come out.
Yeah.
And then you said that you have noticed that of those that select their courses before the exam, 85% get the courses that they first wanted. Does this mean the first choice? That 85% get the first choice, what they had placed there as number one, that's what they get.
Yes. You rightfully said we have two opportunities. One is while they're in school, and while they're in school, they are guided by their teachers, their career teachers, to select the course and the universities. So the teacher here looks at the students' abilities, and they're able to guide them. That the parents also come in and they participate in this. Now, when the results are out, they have now the other opportunity to choose based on my performance. Now, what can I do? And I find that not the very objective part, because it's really guided, driven by the results. And they have the choices. We provide 4 opportunities. Choice 1 has A, B, and C. 1A is one course, one in a university. For example, medicine, University of Nairobi. 1B, medicine, Kenyatta. 1C, medicine, Moi. Then choice 2 can be education, choice 3, pharmacy, choice 4.
Okay.
So you find those who are now in school, and you find they will pick, they're likely to get the 1A, 1B, or 1C.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, when the results are out, the student who gets an A, for example, everybody says, oh, you got an A, you can do medicine. And they forget that we have over 3,000 A's in the country. Yeah. That one who looks at the website on the University of, let me say, Moi, or looks at the medical board and they say the minimum is 4 B's in maths, biology, chemistry, and a language. And I have a B+. I have the 4 B's.
Yep.
And they go for it. So we found that you find like almost 30,000 students all selecting medicine. Yeah.
Post results.
Post results. And they forget that they are in a competition for government sponsorship. Remember, when we are looking at what can the government sponsor. You can't take everyone. The universities also have classes that cannot take, they're limited.
There's limited capacity.
Capacities, exactly. So we put the capacity and the grade, and they compete. And we do this electronically, so it's not...
it's an algorithm.
Exactly. I was avoiding that. The language, the jargon. But we do that and we get the best. And you find, I think you've seen in the papers, students with A, straight A's, and they say, I was even among the list of 100 students. I applied for medicine, and COOPS has denied me the opportunity to do the course, the career of my choice. They don't understand there's that competition. We have less than 500 slots for medicine in this country. Now,
and you got 30,000 people at one point applying.
And over 3,000 students with straight A's.
That would qualify them for those 500 slots.
But my problem is now not even the student. It's that parent who says A equals to medicine. But A can be communication. A can be education. Yeah.
And it could be that the child doesn't want this medicine.
Exactly.
And the child's gifts and talents are pointing to the communication.
So they go in because they have been pushed. On the first year, they have to deal with anatomy and the, handling of cadavers at the anatomy labs. And they realize they can't do it. And they come to us and they say, I want to change. So the pressure now from the parent, the guardian, you're an A student, you can't do communication.
Yeah.
Now this student is pushed to either not attend class, get into drugs, and we're not surprised when we hear the students have committed suicide. So my worry is that A student,
it's
not even the C, the D student. You know what? From observation, the D student seems to be ignored, and they seem to do better because, they're able to think on their own. There's no pressure, and they try out what they think is within their capacity. But that A, the father says this, the mother says this, and you find the parents now say, okay, I didn't make it into medicine. I would have loved
vicariously through my child.
Through my child, yeah. Now the school wants, to sell.
Yeah, our
so
students
they say,
are in
yes, we were able to push this number of students to
medicine,
the following courses.
Law.
Yeah. So if it's a private school, that's a selling point. They put on their websites and on their notice boards. And this puts so much pressure on the students that clearly, I say, let the children be. You mentioned about the job market. Do you know we are having a problem of absorbing the doctors that we are training currently?
Why?
We have doctors who are jobless.
Because there are no positions?
There are no positions.
But is there a need for them?
There is need, yes. But remember, we are also having other courses. We are now training clinical officers, right?
Yep.
Both in KMTC and in the universities.
Same with nurses.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we have the diploma nurses and we have
the degree.
But when it comes to the job market, with the economy, if I run a hospital and I have a choice between a degree nurse and a diploma nurse,
You're going to take the diploma.
I ran for the diploma.
This is interesting that you say this, because I was going to, one of the questions that I was going to ask in terms of what condition fuels the situation. Are we saying that we will then be advising students at your level of what is dictated by the job market? A couple of months ago, we saw a story of that, I believe it was the Engineering Society, who was not then going to award certification to a particular engineering student because there was a course that either they had not completed, and so now that did not allow them to get into a particular
to the engineering board, the role of engineers,
because of something that was not taken at the university level.
The
But as
certification
far
issue.
as they're concerned, they have awarded this degree, they're done. Now, on part of the student, and it could happen across board in any course whatsoever, is the job market then what is fueling the advice that COOPS would give, for example, to these students? Or are we just saying, go ahead and study what it is that you are interested in and what the environment currently provides? Or are we saying where you're going to end up eventually, this and this and this should dictate your decision today?
Now, it's a complex situation, because where we sit at COOPS, we engage with the universities or training institutions, and then we engage with the job market, the professionals,
bodies,
professional bodies, and we say, give us your minimum for you to be a teacher in this country. What are the minimums that TSC expects you to have? And then we look at what the universities are offering, and we set a criteria. So what we publish on our websites, what we tell the students is that they have to, this is what the market needs, and this is what the universities are offering. So we have to match the two and ensure that while we do not set a situation where the students will get out after graduation and realize they cannot fit in the market. Yeah. So we are very keen on checking those subject requirements. So some feel that, the university says they only need this, and COOPS is insisting on adding mathematics to that course. But we have checked with the regulator, and it's been a debate now who should be the, who calls the shots.
Final say.
Yeah. So that's a discussion for another day, and we have the Commission for University Education, and we have TVET that are regulators that really work to get that balance. But looking at the market, yes, we look and say, since we engage with the professional bodies, then we are able to see how are things going on at that level, to be able to advise the students.
The students on the careers to choose.
On the careers to choose, exactly.
And one would be expecting that TVETA and the Commission on University Education are doing the same. That they are also awarding charters to universities for programs, and even colleges for programs that meet market demand. That is what one would be hoping. That when you say that, all right, so we have allowed the University of Nairobi to come up with X number of programs, those mirror what the market is demanding. Because if you go and you find the market is demanding this and you're advising students to do this, but this university has been allowed to come up with a program or to still retain a program that does not address the need,
But Eric,
there's going to be a whole confusion.
Consider this, how do you balance the universities' need to actually collect fees? Because they do need to collect fees.
Yep.
And some of these courses may be popular, but they may not necessarily meet that threshold that you're referring to with regards to the job market. Okay?
I think that's where the regulator comes in.
Yes.
Because the regulator is the one that allows you to roll out that program.
Yes.
If you come up with a program, the regulator should look and say, we have already licensed University A, B, C to run with this, and their capacity is X, and the market is already saturated. by the graduates that are coming out of that. So we cannot allow you, Mr. University
Actually,
CT.
my argument was the flip side of that. Discontinuing a course, because
we've seen it.
A course may be popular, but the job market doesn't really need it. It's fairly saturated. Now, the point at which you allow someone to register, that one is easy. You can determine whether they're going to have it or not, but you already have it. You can see the income it brings. You can see the income it keeps bringing. And yet, it's not really needed.
You know, I really don't want to get into that, but we really have to have honest. Because
you can skirt around it. We'll get you. Yes, don't worry.
No, we at COOPS, the board of COOPS has both TVETA and the commission, and we have representatives of public universities and private universities, and we have representatives of the technical colleges. That forms the board. Okay. And we usually have such discussions, where we are saying we really need to be open with ourselves, honest with ourselves, and say, this course, because you find some universities will add, will say Bachelor of Nursing with this to try and market, with technology, with IT, to try and market. But we're saying, can we really think about the student? Yeah. We are training for a market. We are not training to get the university to earn some money. Yeah. So we have to have that balance and say that the end product is this student who we want to be able to get into the job market. And we need to come up with courses that are really needed at that job market. It's not about what is the easiest to, churn out and get money for the institution. So we have been having such discussions in the few months, and I can assure you that there will be some changes in some of these universities.
The focus is on the student. But you said something, I think you repeated it a number of times, is that you're really concerned then about parents who are serious about their children and their development. So how involved then are parents in this process? Because they are probably some of the greatest influencers of this student that your attention is being given on. So because COOPS can say whatever it wants to say. The commission can say whatever it wants to say. But that child is in my house. Is going to listen to their parents. So how much are you working on the parent? And how much are you involving the parents in this process then of transition?
Yeah. To be honest, we haven't had that much engagement with the parents because we expect once we train these teachers, and they are the ones who know the parents, they have a bigger role to play. But we have developed material. I was engaged in developing the career guidance book. For those of us who went to school those years, we had a career book. Then we realized that disappeared somehow. So when I went into COOPS, that was one of my priorities, to get information and all together. And the book really spells out the role of parents in career choices. And this is a book that is now in all the major bookshops. And we are also distributing the books through the schools. So it, apart from looking at the different careers that are now in the market and the different courses that are in the training institutions, it really has a section where it guides a parent or a guardian how to work with the students to identify their talents, their abilities, and how that plays out in their career choices.
There's something you said. I suspect I didn't quite get it, so I'm seeking clarity here, or clarification. Training, counseling, and guidance teachers to be able to offer the service that we're talking about. Now, did I hear you mention that it's also available to the other teachers in the school?
The target has first been the career teachers.
Okay, now.
Yes. And you were concerned that this same teacher has a lot more responsibilities.
Yes.
Yes.
So you can see where I'm going with this. So I'm saying
Exactly.
that since this teacher probably has the same teaching background or was trained in the same way as these other teachers, why is there a plan perhaps to escalate this training so that the other subject teachers, remember, we're talking about career choices, and these career choices involve subjects. So should the other subject teachers also not, or should there not be a plan for these other subject teachers to also be considered for this training?
I would love to do that. And we are working with an institution called KEMI. Kenya. Well, KEMI builds the capacities of schools, head teachers and boards and schools. So we have come up with a training curriculum for career teachers so that it's a continuous process. And teachers, like all other professionals, love some kind of training because it also plays when it comes to promotion.
Yep.
Yes. So that seems to also be a motivator to the teachers. So we are looking at that as a continuous program. We have been doing it with KEMI for the TVET institutions and universities, because they already have established career offices also. So we've been training them on a continuous basis for the last 2 years. So we want to have the same now for the teachers. So we run the programs during school holidays so that a teacher can be a subject, maths teacher. You don't have to be the career guidance teacher. You can take this, pay for yourself, do the training and also help. But I also mentioned KESHA, the School Heads Association, that brings together the leaders.
School head.
Yes, the leaders in school, the head
The
boys,
head boy,
and because I'm looking at peer counseling. Yes. So that it's a continuous thing within the school by the students. So if I'm in Form 2, I go to Form 3, I will be able to help the Form 2s. Right. And
let's come back then to the parents, because, like you've said, they're a critical stakeholder in this, just as much as the teachers are and the students. But the parents, because of their influence, they need to be brought in fast. So, which organizations and other stakeholders do you need to use to make sure that we as parents get the information from COOPs as quickly as possible and as well calculated as possible, so we stop applying pressure to it? Because I mean, an A in my house, and you're going to do it to what again?
You know what? I would take
poetry.
Now I'll take that as a challenge to go and really think how to engage the parents in a better way. But my argument has been, once the student is empowered, and you remember they spend more time in school than they spend with the...
Right.
If I have a very confident and well-empowered students, they can be able to tell the parent, no, this is what I want, right?
True.
Yes. So I take it as a challenge that I'll go and think how best can I engage parents.
With this training that you mentioned, was it Kish or was it anyway, whatever it was?
KEMI.
KEMI, yes. Peer-to-peer among students makes sense. Peer-to-peer among teachers, so that you have a trainer who can later become a trainer of trainers, so that this system that you're saying, as Eric likes saying, it germinates within itself and it grows within itself into perpetuity, so that even if somebody new joins in, the system already caters for this.
Exactly.
Did I hear you mention that you have something of this sort?
Yes, with the KEMI, we are looking at the teacher training of trainers, so that the teacher is not just trained to provide the one-on-one, but also to empower other teachers within their institutions. Right.
There's a question here from somebody who's I'd be interested to know if COOPS only does placement and career guidance in public schools, and if yes, why are private schools left out?
First things first, we are a government organization, so we operate under the Ministry of Education, and we have We work with the directors secondary. But that doesn't mean the private schools are exempted. We work with the private schools mainly on invitation. We have trained, I think we had a training of teachers in career guidance in Kianda School. Yeah. We've done the same with, I think, Pioneer. We engage with private schools because when they invite us, we do not discriminate and we do not charge for our services.
Okay.
But in terms of planning, I
Your
can tell you
focus is public.
We work with the education officers at the county who mainly work with the public schools.
Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a good opening to our conversations. So next week, Tuesday, you release the list.
Yes.
Where people are going, which universities and colleges
Mhm.
those students are going to go to.
Yes. 7 a.m. at KICD.
We will invite you after that. Once the whole rumbling comes out,
Yes.
you will come and then you will respond to the questions.
Certainly.
Asante sana. Dr.
Thank you.
Agnes Masi Wahome, the CEO of Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Check us to the Weekend City with today's proverb.
Confiding a secret to an unworthy person is like carrying grain in a sack with a hole. As you walk, you will leave a trail of your grain. And you'll get to a point where you wonder why this sack has suddenly become lighter.
Have a lovely weekend, folks. See you again on Monday. Good morning. It's 10 a.m.